Chapter 833. You have used the ability Bold Explorer on Spacetime Amber. You have received the following information. Everything in front of his eyes suddenly shattered, turning into fragments that fluttered in the air. His field of vision abruptly pulled far away, flying out of the galaxy and out of the star field. The stars shone brilliantly as the time passed. It was as if the Spacetime Amber had become a small boat, carrying him against the river of time and seeing the illusions of the past. The next moment, it was as if he was falling. His vision was pulled closer, and the pieces of things reassembled in front of him, forming a person. A video was played before his eyes. This person was on a planet, surrounded by countless enemies, and in the sky were fleets that were fighting. This person waved his hand and unleashed the ability to freeze time and space, freezing countless spaceships and supers. Han Xiaoxin understood that the person in the image was the primordial one who formed the Spacetime Amber. This image was a part of the Spacetime Amber's past. Is this ability giving me information by letting me see some illusions with my own eyes? It's quite similar to the effect of the Destiny's Child character summon card, Han Xiaoxin thought. Very soon, this primordial one encountered a strong enemy. The battle image was automatically fast-forwarded. The process was blurry, and the details of the battle were omitted. The result was quickly shown. This primordial one's consciousness was heavily damaged, and his soul was disintegrating. He was on the verge of death. His other beyond grade, A partner rushed over and retreated while fighting. This time, this primordial one whose consciousness was already blurred suddenly grabbed his partner's shoulder. I'm hopeless. Don't let my body fall into the hands of the enemy. Okay. His partner's expression could not be seen through the armor. He decisively pressed down on this primordial one's body and released his ability. He let go of his defense and did not resist at all. His body crystallized at a visible speed, gradually shrinking into a palm-sized crystal and being thrown into the universe by his partner. At this time, the image suddenly stopped. Han Xiao regained his senses and thought about it. Although this is information that I knew long ago, if I didn't know, this would be equivalent to revealing the origin of the Spacetime Amber, which is relatively important information. The effect of this ability is not bad. Han Xiao nodded to himself. Such an effect was suitable for unearthing hidden elements, and it could be used repeatedly on the same target. The information obtained each time should be different. If he used it frequently, there was an 80% chance that he could piece together all the information about the unknown object. As for the negative effect of decreasing 60% luck for 14 days, Han Xiao directly ignored it. Anyway, it was already won. No matter how low it was, it wouldn't become a negative number. A dead pig wasn't afraid of boiling water. Since the test results were not wrong, Han Xiao was prepared to use it on the wormhole data God wanted after the cooldown was over. If he could not figure out in one try, he would use it a few more times. At this moment, a notification popped up on the interface, interrupting Han Xiao's thoughts. You have triggered the hidden chain mission, Legacy of the Primordial Ones, Spacetime Freezer. Mission Introduction. Through some means, you learned that the Spacetime Amber was originally the remains of a beyond grade A super. He was one of the primordial ones, Spacetime Freezer. You have obtained his legacy. If you can complete his last wish, you will have a deeper understanding of the Spacetime Amber. First round mission requirements. Find out the will of the Spacetime Freezer. Mission reward. +1 soul connection to the Spacetime Amber. Han Zhao's face was filled with question marks. What the hell is this mission? I've never even heard of it before. How was this hidden mission triggered? Oh, I get it. Han Xiao was surprised for a while, but soon understood. Although he knew the origin of the Spacetime Amber long ago, his personal memory did not affect the judgment of the interface at all. Only the information he obtained through his own actions would be recognized by the interface as fulfilling the prerequisite of the hidden mission. The fragment of the origin of the Spacetime Amber that he obtained using Bold Explorer was the trigger for the mission. In his previous life, no player had obtained the Spacetime Amber, so naturally, no one would know about this mission. He was the first person to trigger this mission. As for the soul connection, Han Xiao knew what it was. It was commonly seen in the mage and psychic classes, and it could be understood as the affinity for a specific item. For example, the higher the soul connection a character had with an item, the more powerful the item would be, and the easier it would be to control it. There was a living example in front of him. Cisco had controlled the evolution cube for so long that he had left a deep psychic imprint on the evolution cube. Furthermore, he could receive feedback from the evolution cube to strengthen his psychic power. This was because Cisco had a very high soul connection with the evolution cube, which was similar to the concept of refining magic equipment. In his previous life, this function was only available to the players in the later versions. Only some special equipment or items had the concept of soul connection, but it was not absolute. For example, if a player had an ordinary item every day, it was possible to activate the soul connection. I'm not a psychic or a mage, so I don't know when I'll be able to form a soul connection with this thing. This mission has helped me skip the most difficult step. In another sense, the space-time amber is the remains of the primordial one. Completing his last wish will increase the soul connection, which might be equivalent to the recognition of the remains. Haha! Space-time amber, current soul connection, 0/5 with such a reward. Han Xiao was also very interested in this mission. Although the primordial ones had existed for too long, as the first batch of Beyond Grade, as in the universe, their information was still quite detailed. Many organizations were keen to study them, and Space-Time Freezer was not a nobody. It was very easy to obtain his information. As for Space-Time Freezer's dying wish, Han Xiao was not worried that he would not be able to find it. According to the way the interface determined, he did not really need to study Space-Time Freezer's life. As long as he did the act of browsing Space-Time Freezer's information, the interface should judge that he had completed the requirement and automatically give him the next mission requirement. After getting Philip to search for information on the internet, Han Xiao did not stay idle either. He started to build a simple control device for the space-time amber. As long as he had a soul connection, not only would he be able to receive attribute feedback from universal treasures like Cisco, but he should also be able to control the space-time amber directly with his mind. However, he had not received the reward yet. He still needed mechanical equipment to help him use the space-time amber. Han Xiao completed the construction very quickly. At this time, the space-time amber was wrapped in a black spherical mechanical device. This device could activate the energy of the space-time amber and be controlled by Han Xiao's mind. At the same time, it also had the functions of a hovering guard, such as flying, releasing shields, and so on. Han Xiaoxin made the space-time amber float and activate the device. Gudu, a small hole appeared on the spherical device. The next moment, invisible energy shot out from the hole and started to change the properties of a small area of space. The area of influence slowly expanded. When Han Xiao cut off the energy output of the space-time amber, the changed space was frozen and turned into a solid amber. The output of the space-time amber seems to be unable to be adjusted. The speed of creating amber is not fast, and it's constant. At this speed, it will take a few minutes to create an amber that can cover a 2-meter-tall creature. Furthermore, the changed space-time will only be fixed into amber when the energy output is cut off. After thinking about it, Han Xiao summoned Psionic Prime out to test it. Very soon, he obtained all kinds of test results. After Psionic Prime was completely wrapped up, Psionic Prime could not move, and his signals were cut off. He could not communicate with the outside world, and Philip could not give him any orders. Han Xiao also tried to only wrap a part of Psionic Prime's body, such as his knees and not his calves and thighs, to see if he could cut off his control over his limbs. However, this attempt failed. It seemed that during the solidification process, the edges of the frozen space-time had to be unobstructed. If there was any physical obstruction, the amber would not be able to form. This situation was a bit like blowing bubbles. Therefore, if I want to freeze a target, I can only wrap it up completely. Han Xiao stroked his chin and had an idea. Since the space-time amber could block all kinds of energy and deflect energy attacks, it could be used as a special external armor. However, he could not control the space-time amber to mold it to the way he wanted it to be, so the amber he created would only be a ball. Furthermore, the space-time amber could only deflect energy attacks and not block them. If he wanted to use it on his mechanical suit, he would have to install it on a large area. Because it cannot be molded, it was difficult to do so at the moment. He might have to form a soul connection with the space-time amber before he could do so. However, Han Xiao still had a way. The amber could be moved, and he planned to use the space-time amber to create some amber balls that were larger than himself. He would then use the nano-shape-shifting hovering guards to wrap these amber balls. If he encountered an energy attack, he would use these amber balls as a shield to cover himself tightly. The effect might be even better than a tank talent. This can also be considered a special defensive method, Han Xiao thought to himself. No wonder so many people fought for this universal treasure in his previous life. Not only was it a powerful imprisonment method, but it was also a blessing for brittleness. Although the space-time amber itself was not used for combat, as long as it was used properly, it could also have a miraculous effect. Its help in combat was even greater than the evolution cube. After testing the actual effect, Han Xiao then used the space-time amber to seal the evolution cube. At the same time, on the mother planet of the star Pupil Protoss, Black Star, outside the door, the two guards standing guard suddenly heard the roar of their leader coming from the room. They were shocked and looked at each other. In the room, Cisco's face was filled with shock and anger. All along, although Cisco had lost the evolution cube, he did not seem anxious. His confidence came from the deep connection between his psychic power and the evolution cube. Even if the evolution cube was not in his hands, the psychic imprint left on the evolution cube would give him feedback at any time, increasing the strength of his psychic power. This was just like how Black Star had only obtained the body of the evolution cube, but not its heart. Cisco knew that the evolution cube still loved him. Because he could determine the location of the evolution cube at any time, Cisco had always felt that the situation was still under his control. However, just now, Cisco was shocked to find that his connection with the evolution cube had been cut off without any warning. To him, it was like a wife who had to compromise with the enemy. However, the enemy had developed feelings for her, and she had really fallen in love with someone else. Psyker felt as if his heart was being attacked by a wave of anger. His heart was green, and it felt as if his family jewels had been kicked. Chapter 834. Why did Black Star block my psychic perception of the evolution cube? Beep beep. Cisco's face turned green. Just as he was in shock, his communicator rang. Taking it out, his pupils constricted, and he gritted his teeth. It was a call from Black Star. Hello, is this Cisco? Han Xiao popped his head out from the screen. Black Star, what did you do? Cisco yelled. Seeing this, Han Xiao pretended to be surprised. Yo, I haven't seen you in a while. How did your skin turn green? Seeing Cisco's angry expression, Han Xiao laughed and hung up the call without waiting for the other party to reply. He no longer teased Cisco. In order to verify the effect, Han Xiao took the initiative to call Cisco. Hearing the other party's tone, he knew that the blocking of psychic perception had succeeded. This meant that he had nothing to talk about with Cisco anymore. Originally, Cisco's perception of the evolution cube had always been a hidden danger. Now that Cisco's advantage had been removed and Cisco could not track him, Han Xiao felt much more at ease. The Arcane Church did not have an intelligence network in the flickering world. If they wanted to deal with him, they would most likely have to rely on Cisco's perception of the evolution cube. Now, the Arcane Church had one less thing to rely on. Part of the Arcane Church's obsession with the evolution cube came from Cisco's psychic perception. They felt that they had a high chance of getting it back. Once they lost this trump card, they would have to think twice before making a move on the evolution cube in the future. Although he had decided to stay in the Dynasty's outpost planet lighthouse to avoid the limelight, he could not hide forever. Furthermore, the Arcane Church would not be so lucky as to think that the Dynasty would not be able to guess their intentions. If there was really no chance of a sneak attack, it was not impossible for them to directly attack the Dynasty's outpost. Because of the exploration of the new star field, the Dynasty was currently the weaker party among the three universal civilizations. The Arcane Church might dare to have a direct confrontation with the dynasty. Although with the Arcane Church's style, the possibility of them adopting such a radical plan was not high. Han Xiao did not exclude the possibility of it happening. After all, he had changed the storyline. Compared to the same period in his previous life, the relationship between the organizations had had a subtle change. He did not know how far the Arcane Church would go in order to snatch the Evolution Cube. If he could make the Arcane Church know the situation, he would not be in such a passive situation in the future. As for whether Cisco would still follow the Arcane Church to deal with him after losing his sensing ability, there was no need to worry. Even if it was to check why his psychic location was blocked, Cisco would still come over. The Evolution Cube once belonged to Cisco, so the Arcane Church would not leave him, the previous owner, to the side. Therefore, he could still monitor Cisco's whereabouts and indirectly obtain some information about the Arcane Church's actions. Cisco was just about to continue questioning when he realized that the communication had been cut off. He was so angry that his heart was twitching. After pausing for a while, Cisco turned around and contacted the upper echelons of the Arcane Church. The situation has changed. I can't locate Black Star's location. What? The upper echelons of the Arcane Church were shocked and troubled. The operation plan was already set, and such an accident happened. Since we can't accurately grasp Black Star's whereabouts, we have to change the operation plan. The Arcane Church had originally planned to secretly gather an overwhelming number of beyond grade as sneak into the flickering world and ambush Black Star when he was out exploring, killing him in one fell swoop. The premise of this plan was Cisco's location on Han Xiao. Cisco's location had never been a problem, but at this time, Black Star had actually thought of a way to suddenly cut off Cisco's connection to the Evolution Cube, which disrupted the Arcane Church's plan. Originally, they had planned to let a group of beyond grade as attack Black Star when he was alone and let Black Star fight all of them alone. This way, they could end the battle quickly and crush Black Star. After that, they could immediately return to the Shattered Star Ring through the secret Stargate. Now that they could not directly determine Black Star's location, they might have to give up on the plan of killing him and capture Black Star alive to interrogate him about the whereabouts of the Evolution Cube. If that happened, their beyond grade as might be delayed in the flickering world for a long time. In this new star field, the Arcane Church had almost no foundation. Every second these beyond grade as stayed would increase the risk. If their secret Stargate was discovered and destroyed by the dynasty during the operation, these beyond grade as would not be able to escape the flickering world and would become turtles in a jar. I need to report this to the Pope and the bishops and let them make a decision. This upper echelon was hesitant. Because of this change, the risk of this operation had greatly increased and exceeded the scope of his plan. However, he was also secretly glad that this change had happened before the operation. At this time, the Stowaways were still heading toward the Geru star cluster and had yet to build the Stargate exit. The beyond grade as of the Arcane Church were still waiting at home, so there was still a chance to change the plan. Okay, Cisco was helpless. Although he was anxious, he knew that he could not order the Arcane Church around. Through the Stargate, Han Xiao only beat up Hardaway for a few days before the fleet returned to the dynasty's outpost in the Dawn Star Cluster, Planet Lighthouse. Terekov had already informed Han Xiao and knew that Han Xiao would be hiding on Planet Lighthouse during this period of time. Thus, he personally led his men to welcome him at the dock. The fleet landed, and Han Xiao walked out of the spaceship with his officers and greeted Terekov. "Chief Commander, Your Excellency Black Star." After shaking hands and greeting each other, the two of them boarded a vehicle and headed toward the base on Planet Lighthouse. I wonder who will be participating in the second batch of Dynasty allies? Han Xiao asked casually. Terekov had a "I knew you would ask" this expression on his face. He pressed his wristband and projected the information of 11 organizations. Han Xiao glanced around and nodded. He recognized all of these organizations. They were all famous organizations from different star fields. There were also beyond Grade A allied organizations and star cluster civilizations like Clint that had submitted to the dynasty. They were all part of the dynasty. Constellation Corridors Arcane Research Institute, Primeval Star Rivers Flame Demon Race, Black Hole Edges Dragonblood Nation, Sea of Star Spirits Giant Ship Ring City. A total of 4 Beyond Grade A organizations. Oh, 3 of them are familiar. During the trip to the Dynasty's mother planet a few months ago, Han Xiao had met 7 Beyond Grade A Dynasty allies, and 3 of them were participating in this exploration team. The leader of the Arcane Research Institute was a member of the Ancient Ones, Raven Loudy. The leader of the Flame Demon race was someone he was familiar with, Bayoni. They had gone to fight ES God together before. The leader of Giant Shipring City was also a Beyond Grade A member whom he had met before. He was also a mechanic. The only one he had not met before was the leader of the Dragonblood Nation, Milizaos. This person was one of the 3 strongest national pillars and was on the same level as Dark Emperor Claudi. He was the strongest person in this exploration team. Among the 4 of them, Han Xiao paid more attention to Raven Loudy because this guy had explored the same area as him, the Garrus Star Cluster. Raven Loudy was also the first owner of the space-time amber in Han Xiao's previous life. Of course, this time, Han Xiao had gotten it first, and Raven Loudy had missed the opportunity to obtain the space-time amber. Han Xiao thought for a while and asked, "The Dynasty said that they will send a direct Beyond Grade A to protect me and prevent the Arcane Church from attacking. Who is that?" Terakov waved his hands and said, "The plan has changed. Milizaos and Bayoni took the initiative to request to protect you. This is a better choice." Han Xiao was stunned for a moment. He then understood something and smiled. "They must have given me a condition." "That's right." Terakov also smiled. "They want exchange for a chance to use the evolution cube." Han Xiao had expressed his attitude long ago. He would not use the evolution cube for the Dynasty's allies for free. If they wanted to borrow it, they would have to give something in exchange. Milizaos and Bayoni both intended to use this opportunity to make a deal with Han Xiao. "What do you think? Do you agree to their conditions?" Han Xiao thought for a while and nodded. Sure. This was one more helper than the original plan, and it was an even stronger person. He naturally did not have any objections and could even use this opportunity to build some connections. He remembered that the faction specialties of the Dragonblood country were all kinds of Dragonblood potions that could permanently increase one's attribute points. Han Xiao did not have a big target and only wanted a few hundred tons of them. The second batch of exploration teams took different routes. Those who were fast would arrive in 10 days, and those who were slow would take up to a month. However, they had already gathered their troops long ago and would not waste too much time. Along the way to the base, the accommodations had already been arranged. Han Xiao led a group of officers into the accommodations. During this period of time, he would stay there and temporarily stop going out. He would only remotely command the Black Star Corps to explore on their own. Normal exploration did not require him to do it personally, so he could rest and watch the players work. In the desolate universe belt of the Central Galaxy, the huge Fallen Ark fleet was slowly moving in the universe like an ocean of battleships. The Arcane Church said that they want to delay the operation. ES God was awakened. Upon hearing Hakuzen's words, he could not help but narrow his eyes. Reason? The Arcane Church said that there's a problem with the construction of the Stargate. The Red Empire also sent out the second batch of exploration teams in time, so the risk of the operation has increased. They need to adjust the plan, so they want us to be patient and continue to wait, Hakuzen reported. Hearing this, ES God nodded slowly. Then we'll do as they say. There's one more thing. Hakuzen sneered. The Arcane Church said that there might be a possibility of a strong attack when the time comes. They hope that we can send out more fleets when the time comes. Because of the increased risk, they want us to send out more people to reduce losses. Their style is becoming more and more similar to the Radiant Federation. ES God's tone was calm and indifferent. Just agree to their request. As long as he could obtain the evolution cube, he did not care about the casualties of his subordinates. Because he had been tricked by Black Star with a fake evolution cube last time, ES God's intention of cooperating with the Arcane Church was to use the Arcane Church as the middleman and borrow Cisco's psychic positioning to avoid repeating the same mistake. This was also an important link between the two sides. However, Sisko's psychic positioning had already lost its effect. If God knew about this, he would most likely reconsider the cooperation. However, although the Arcane Church had not finalized a new plan, they did not want God to withdraw from this operation. Therefore, they deliberately hid the fact that Sisko's positioning had lost its effect from him and found another reasonable reason to delay the operation. They did not mention Sisko's problem. Because of the deep hatred between them on planet Avidan, the Arcane Church naturally would not tell Sisko that God was involved in this operation. Therefore, God did not know about the changes on Sisko's side and was still in the dark, waiting for the operation to begin. After staying on Planet Lighthouse for 2 days, Han Xiao had already finished reading all the information about the space-time freezer that Philip had collected. As expected, after reading it, a notification popped up on the interface. The first round of the mission had been completed rather easily. With the reward in hand, his soul connection with the space-time amber increased by 1 point. Han Xiao immediately felt a different feeling. Somehow, his mind seemed to have established a connection with the space-time amber. He no longer needed any auxiliary devices and could directly activate the effects of the space-time amber with his mind. At the same time, a special energy flowed into his body through the soul connection. His whole body felt warm, and Han Xiao could not help but sigh in comfort. This energy lasted for a while before disappearing. Han Xiao was very sensitive to his body at this time, and he immediately felt that this energy had strengthened his body to a certain extent. He immediately opened the interface to check the new notification. You have established a soul connection with Space-Time Amber. Current level, 1/5 Space-Time Amber, grade, gold item type. Universal Treasure. You have received the buff Space-Time Amber's feedback. Buff duration, constant. The effect of the first level is already so good. Han Zhao's eye sparkled. Just like how the evolution cube had strengthened Sisko's psychic power, he would also be strengthened when he established a soul connection with the space-time amber. Han Xiao took out the space-time amber and tried using it. He realized that the energy output had increased and the speed of creating amber had increased by about 20 to 30%. It seems that the deeper the soul connection, the faster the speed of creating amber with this thing. Han Xiao looked at the second round of the mission. The reward was also +1 soul connection. The mission requirement was to find the whereabouts of the space-time freezer's race and come into contact with his descendants. This requirement, Han Xiao had a strange expression on his face. It was not that he could not find the descendants of the space-time freezer, but that they were too easy to find. He had already read all the information about the space-time freezer and knew that this guy's race still existed, and they had always been affiliated with the civilization that the space-time freezer had served. The only problem was that every beyond grade A race had extraordinary talents, and the ratio of supers was extremely high. They had always been viewed as important resources by the various civilizations to nurture warriors. The space-time freezer's race was also protected by the civilization that they belonged to, and no outsiders were allowed to come into contact with them. This civilization had survived the exploration era's war and had grown into a behemoth today. It was one of the 3 universal civilizations, the Radiant Federation. I'm just a beyond grade A belonging to the dynasty. If I go to the Radiant Federation's territory, do I have to infiltrate again? If I'm exposed, I'll probably be beaten to death in the Radiant Federation's territory. Han Zhao's mouth twitched. He was in the flickering world and did not have time to leave. The second round of the mission was obviously not going to be completed anytime soon, so he decided to just put it aside. Anyway, he had the treasure in his hands, so he was not in a hurry. He had another thing to do. It had been 7 days since he last used Bold Explorer, and the cooldown was over. This skill was like a different kind of divination. No matter how one looked at it, it was very mystical. However, after testing it, the effect was indeed outstanding. Han Xiao brought up the wormhole data that God wanted, and his lips curled up. Finally, I can see what secrets are hidden in this set of data. Although this set of data had been shared with the dynasty, under the research of the dynasty's Academy of Science, there was a high chance that it would be deciphered and obtained accurate clues in the future. However, he chose to believe in mysticism today. Chapter 835. The interface indicated that Bold Explorer had taken effect, and Han Zhao's vision entered another illusion. He already knew how the skill worked, so he calmed down and looked at the information. Two figures appeared in the illusion, surrounded by chaotic blue-black space energy. It was as if they were in a wormhole. The two figures were very familiar. One was his past self, and the other was ES God's doppelganger. This scene made Han Xiaoxin's heart skip a beat. This set of wormhole data came from the wormhole that ES God's doppelganger had passed through. This was the process at that time. The image changed, and his past self escaped from the wormhole according to the original development. However, Han Zhao's vision was locked onto ES God's doppelganger, watching as ES God's doppelganger floated in the space turbulence. It's here, it's here. Seeing this, Han Xiao was energized. He did not know what happened after he exiled ES God's doppelganger. It seemed like he could finally know what happened to ES God's doppelganger on the other side of the wormhole that caused ES God to be so obsessed with the coordinates of this wormhole. The next moment, ES God's doppelganger finally passed through the wormhole and was spat out, appearing in a pitch-black universe. ES God's doppelganger in the image could not wait for Han Xiao and realized that he had been tricked. He seemed a little annoyed and stayed on the spot for a while before suddenly teleporting in a certain direction. Han Zhao's vision followed ES God's doppelganger. Not long later, ES God's doppelganger suddenly stopped, and a strange planet appeared in front of him. There were many wormholes outside the planet's atmosphere, and plant roots extended out from the void and connected to the planet's surface. Beams of energy were absorbed by the roots as if they were absorbing the planet's nutrients. Han Zhao's pupils constricted, and he was shocked. He did not expect to see this thing here. Before he could think, the situation in the image suddenly changed. A dark space crack appeared beside ES God's doppelganger, and more than 10 thin plant roots suddenly shot out like vines and wrapped around ES God's doppelganger tightly. At this time, the illusion disappeared, and the image stopped there. Han Zhao's vision returned to reality. F***, why is it cut off here? Han Xiao almost cursed it out loud. He was just waiting to see what would happen to the ES God doppelganger, and it ended just like that? How infuriating. Taking a deep breath, Han Xiao recalled the fragments of information he had just received. His expression was uncertain. If this piece of information was shown to others, it would only make them feel that it was meaningless and worthless. In the entire explored universe, other than himself, there was probably no one else who knew what this piece of information meant. He might be the only one who knew what those roots were. It was the universal civilization that invaded in the later versions of his previous life, the World Tree Civilization. The World Tree Civilization is several versions away from now, and it actually appeared at this stage. Han Xiao subconsciously bit his nails with a solemn expression. He finally understood that this set of wormhole data was connected to the territory of the World Tree Civilization. ES God's doppelganger had coincidentally transmigrated to that area. The World Tree Civilization was located in the unexplored universe and was very far away from the explored universe. The three universal civilizations and the World Tree did not know of each other's existence. To a powerful civilization, exploring the unknown was a necessary mission. It was only a matter of time before they met. However, in the later versions of his previous life, the World Tree Civilization discovered the existence of the three universal civilizations and finally decided to launch an invasion. A super large-scale universal war broke out that no one could avoid. At this stage, there should not be any interaction between the two sides. If not for me, the Dark Star leader would not have brought ES God's doppelganger to attack me, and ES God would not have met the World Tree Civilization. *T, this is probably the biggest butterfly effect I've caused so far. Han Zhao's expression was grave. The fragment of information earlier contained a lot of information. He knew that the World Tree Civilization was a special civilization. The World Tree was equivalent to their universal treasure, and it was of the highest grade. It was worshipped and nourished by the entire civilization, and at the same time, it brought unparalleled benefits to the entire civilization. It was a companion to the civilization. The world tree was rooted in the dimension and had a keen sense of energy. The ES God doppelganger was discovered by the roots of the world tree. Although he did not know what happened to the ES God doppelganger, it was clear that ES God had not forgotten about this set of wormhole data. The two had already made contact. ES God is probably researching this set of data to find the exact location of the world tree civilization. He said that this is the hope for the next step of evolution. Could it be that this bastard was bewitched by the world tree civilization and wants to lead the way? Thinking of this, Han Zhao's expression changed. If the world tree civilization discovered the location of the three universal civilizations in advance because of the ES God doppelganger's visit, the invasion of the world tree civilization would very likely break out in advance. That would be a disaster for the entire explored universe. If the world tree civilization's war broke out in advance, the storyline he was familiar with would be completely overturned, and his advantage of foresight would be greatly reduced. At the same time, he would lose the time to accumulate his strength. Although he already had the strength of a beyond grade A, in such a large-scale galactic war that was comparable to the exploration era, even a beyond grade A super could not guarantee that he would survive. After all, far too many beyond grade A supers had died in this war in his previous life. Thankfully, that's only an ES God doppelganger. With ES God's personality, he might not reveal everything to outsiders. ES God wanted to find the location of the World Tree civilization and not wait for the World Tree civilization to arrive. This meant that ES God might not have revealed any information about the explored universe. At this point, Han Zhao could only pray that ES God did not tell the World Tree civilization about the existence of the three universal civilizations. However, if ES God was allowed to continue researching this set of data, he would definitely obtain results one day and drag everyone into the flames of war. No one would be able to stay out of it. This was a ticking time bomb that could not be ignored. I can't let him continue researching. Han Zhao clenched his teeth. So far, he had only fought ES God twice. Although they were enemies, he knew that he would not be able to do anything to ES God in the short term. However, today Han Zhao felt an urge to kill ES God for the first time. He could not wait to get rid of ES God. ES God is able to survive in the cracks of the three universal civilizations. Even if I ask the dynasty for help, it will most likely be useless. Furthermore, I don't have any evidence to prove the existence of the World Tree civilization, so the dynasty won't be determined to get rid of ES God. Bold Explorer could only be used on himself and could not be shared with others. Even if he told the dynasty would not believe the existence of the World Tree civilization. The only way to make the dynasty believe him was to interrogate ES God. However, if he wanted to interrogate ES God, he would have to capture ES God first. Otherwise, ES God would not reveal anything. ES God purposely told me about the abnormalities in the set of data because he wants to use me to indirectly borrow the dynasty's technology to complete his research. No matter who finds the location of the World Tree civilization first, it's a good thing for him. However, since he's using me, ES God obviously won't reveal what he saw. Han Zhao frowned. He realized that there were not many external forces that he could rely on in this matter. Unless the dynasty also had some results on this set of data and did not discover the existence of the World Tree civilization at the same time. Then, in order to keep the existence of the entire explored universe a secret, the dynasty would have a strong need to get rid of ES God. Difficult, the conditions are too harsh. Although the dynasty has the experience of the exploration-era war and knows how to hide from unfamiliar existences, with the existence of order, the dynasty might take the initiative to contact the other party. Han Zhao shook his head helplessly. If he had known that this set of wormhole data led to the World Tree civilization, he would not have handed it to the dynasty for research. There were simply too many uncontrollable factors. The moment something went wrong, the universe war that would only appear in the later versions might erupt prematurely. Now, only I know about this. It's too difficult to deal with this matter by myself. Han Xiaoxin felt heavy. Dealing with ES God has to be put on the agenda. My current strength is not enough to fight ES God alone. Sigh. The experience penalty period is so long. Han Xiao had a helpless expression. After staying on Planet Lighthouse for more than half a month, a few new exploration teams finally arrived at the flickering world. Terekov received the leaders of these exploration teams at the base, and Han Xiao ran over to join in the fun. He wanted to meet the members of the second batch of exploration teams and make some new friends. In the conference room, everyone walked in and saw Terekov waiting there. They then turned to look at Han Xiao. "Hello, Chief Commander Terekov." "Hello, Your Excellency Black Star." None of the Star Cluster civilization commanders were unfamiliar with this new ally of the dynasty who had the evolution cube. They all looked at him curiously. Han Xiao nodded with a smile. "Haha, we meet again." Baoni laughed and greeted. "I heard that the Arcane Church wants to attack you. It seems like you need my help." Before he finished his sentence, someone beside him suddenly said, "It's our help." Han Xiao turned around to size this person up. He saw that this person was a glowing energy body. A blazing red light flowed all over his body. His structure was that of a humanoid creature. There was no mouth or nose on his face, only a pair of bright golden dragon eyes. "You are." Han Xiao was stunned and did not recognize him. "Mila Zhao's," the energy entity said calmly. "Don't be surprised. This is just a magical energy avatar. My main body did not descend." Han Xiao shook hands with the magical energy avatar and said, "It's an honor to meet you, the king of the Dragonblood Nation and the leader of the astral spiritual dragon race." At the same time, he secretly entered the quantum network and looked at the outer space of Planet Lighthouse through the surveillance camera. A dragon the size of a main ship was soaring in the outer space of the planet. The dragon had a long beard, and its body was covered in diamond-shaped dragon scales. Even the smallest scale was a few meters long. The dragon's body was silver, purple, and green, and there seemed to be starlight flowing through the gaps between the scales. Although its body was huge, it gave off a streamlined and agile feeling. This was an astral spiritual dragon. Even among the same race, its size was extremely shocking. This was the main body of Milizaus. He was a non-humanoid intelligent creature. The astral spiritual dragon race was a beyond grade A inherited race. It was a bloodline branch left behind by a magic blue dragon that had broken through the limit and reached beyond grade A in the past. They were born with powerful magic talents. Although their reproduction rate was not high, an adult astral spiritual dragon could reach grade B at the very least. Milizaus was the second beyond grade A of this inherited race. He was a unique dragon mage who had the characteristics of both a normal mage and a magic circuit mage. He could learn all kinds of spells, but when using the inherited spells of the dragon race, the power would be greatly increased. Currently, Milizaus was the leader of the entire inherited race. His status was similar to that of the Mecha Empire's Manison, who was the leader of the mechanical race. Furthermore, due to the strength of the dragon race, Milizaus was also a member of the Ancient Ones Club. Other than Raven Loudy, he was the other Ancient one of the allies of the Red Empire. However, the Ancient Ones were a loose alliance. His position was different from Ravenloud's. To some extent, they did not have a good relationship. Raven Loudy was also a mage, and the two of them had different philosophies on magic. Obviously, Milizaus had become a new species and was no longer a pure astral spiritual dragon. Due to his huge body, he usually used his magic avatar to communicate with others. "I've heard a lot about you, the immortal Black Star." Milizaus' voice was hoarse, but his personality was very cheerful and not as cold as Claudia. This was mainly because they were all beyond grade, as and could only communicate with each other on the same level. "With me here, you don't have to worry about the Arcane Church. Maybe they won't dare do anything when they see me here." "Haha, then I'll have to prepare the evolution cube for you in advance." Han Xiao laughed. Suddenly, his eyes turned. "By the way, are you interested in making another deal with me? It's still about the evolution cube." "Oh." Milizaus' interest was piqued. "You know me very well. All right, let's have a good talk after the meeting." Raven Loudy, who was at the side, glanced at Han Xiao with a playful expression. He nodded at Han Xiao as a greeting and sat down with the rest without saying anything else. Because of Aesop, Raven Loudy did not want to get close to Black Star. As a mage, he was not very interested in the evolution cube. Furthermore, both of them were exploring the Garus star cluster and had a competitive relationship. Raven Loudy did not intend to let their nodding relationship develop further. He was not someone who liked to get close to others. Chapter 836. Everyone sat down and started the meeting. Tarakov's meeting was to explain the current situation of the exploration. After listening for a while, Raven Loudy was in a good mood. He was also exploring the Garus star cluster, and the long-distance stargate built by the Black Star Corps gave him more options, which was very beneficial to him. I wonder what Black Star is thinking. Raven Loudy chuckled. Heber explored the Renault star cluster slowly and steadily, and the subsequent exploration teams would not be able to gain anything, so they could only take their time. However, the Black Star Corps did not seem to care about their own interests, burning themselves to warm the future generations. What kind of spirit was this? This was the spirit of selflessness. Glancing at Han Xiao, Ravenlaud's eyes became more and more playful. Noticing Ravenlaud's gaze, Han Xiao turned around and smiled at him with mockery in his eyes. Although the long-distance stargate made Ravenlaud's exploration more convenient, the biggest reward, the space-time amber, was already in his hands. Furthermore, even if Raven Loudy could use the long-distance stargate to explore many areas freely, the richest and most famous planets in his previous life were all taken by Han Xiao, and there were very few good planets left for Raven Loudy. Of course, Raven Loudy knew nothing about this. When their eyes met, it was as if sparks were flying. It was as if they were having a silent exchange. There was a deep meaning hidden in their eyes. It could be roughly described as follows. Raven Loudy thought, "Humph, you're at a disadvantage." Han Xiao thought, "TSK, TSK, you still don't know that you're the one at a disadvantage." The meeting ended very quickly, and everyone left. As the first batch of exploration teams, including Han Xiao and Heber, had already built the Stargate and Bridgehead, the second batch of exploration teams could directly reach the various star clusters and did not need to waste time on Planet Lighthouse. Milizau's and Bayone's troops also moved out, but they stayed behind to accompany Han Xiao, acting as temporary guard for the evolution cube. As beyond grade A combatants of the dynasty, neither of them minded bonding with their colleague, Black Star. The three of them sat across from each other in the spacious room. 3 cups of hot, red-hot liquid were placed on the table. This was a specialty that Bayone had brought from his home. It was said to be a special drink that the flame demons loved. Han Xiao took a big gulp. It tasted sticky and hot, like a line of fire going down his throat. His stomach felt warm, and a series of -0 damage notifications popped up above his head. The texture is not bad. What is this? Han Xiao smacked his lips. It felt good. This is magma from the land of the fire core. It's also mixed with concentrated alcohol. It tastes good, right? Mother of Asterisker, you actually gave me lava to drink. Han Xiao's mouth twitched. The land of the fire core. This seemed to be the only universal treasure that the fire demon race possessed. It seemed to be a hotbed that could allow young fire demons to grow quickly. Han Xiao remembered that the Extinguished Army had always wanted to destroy this thing. After hesitating for a while, Han Xiao still did not put down the cup. He could not help but take another sip and lick his lips. Another cup. Needless to say, the taste was a little addictive. He had even stayed on a star before. Drinking some magma was just a basic operation. Milizau's looked at the cup in front of him, speechlessly. He did not know whether he should drink or not. Shaking his head, he interrupted the two of them and asked, "Black Star, what's the deal you mentioned earlier?" Han Xiao put down the cup, smiled, and said, "The various kinds of dragon blood potions of the Dragon Blood Nation are famous in the universe. I want to use the slots of the evolution cube to exchange for dragon blood potions. You're the leader of the astral spiritual dragon race, so I'm sure you want to let some of your capable people evolve, right?" Milizau's pondered for a while before nodding. "Sure. How do you want to exchange? The Dragon Blood Potion was a special product that was sold, so Milizaus naturally would not reject it. The Dragon Blood Nation was made up of mixed blood dragons that were watered with dragon blood. They were considered a vassal and armed organization of the race. The astral spiritual dragon race was the foundation that he valued. 2 tons of ordinary dragon blood potion and 100 kilograms of refined dragon blood potion in exchange for 100 slots of the evolution cube. Milizaus was a little confused. Tons? Dragon blood potion is usually sold by the bottle. UB asterisk starred. Milizaus' tone was dissatisfied. More than 10 tons of grade C dragon blood can only be refined into 1 ton of dragon blood potion. The ratio of refined dragon blood potion is even worse. Why don't I just give you a few dragons and you bleed yourself? Han Shao pondered seriously. That's not impossible. You're too greedy, Milizaus said angrily. It's not like I'm going to buy all the slots at once. It's fine to take it slow. Han Shao chuckled. Friendship was friendship, but when it came to business, he still had to be greedy. He wanted so much dragon blood potion, and of course, he would not be able to use all. He would mainly use it to train capable officers and sell it to the players at a high price. Through selling the specialties of the other faction, he would expand the product channels of the Black Star Corps and increase the attractiveness of the faction. This had already become Han Zhao's habit. Milizaus was speechless. Although we're big and have a lot of blood, you can't just squeeze all the juice out of us. If you have any concerns, I can let your people experience the actual effect of the evolution cube once for free, Han Shao said. All right, let's find an empty space. I'll call a dragon down. Milizaus nodded. Han Shao looked at Baoni, and Baoni did not have any objections. He also wanted to observe the effect. The 3 of them went out together and came to a spacious metal square. Han Shao looked up and saw a giant dragon descending from the sky. Whoosh! The dragon flapped its wings, stirring up a whistling gale. The astral spirit dragon landed on the square with a bang, causing the ground to tremble slightly. Han Shao sized it up. This giant dragon was about 1,000 meters tall, with 2 pairs of wide dragon wings on its back and 3 pairs of dragon claws below its body. Its neck was raised high like a thick python, and its head was lowered. A pair of cold golden dragon eyes stared at the 3 of them. This was a normal astral spirit dragon. Compared to Milizaus, its size was not as exaggerated. Furthermore, this astral spirit dragon did not have the habit of running around naked. Its body was covered in sections of black metal armor. Most of its body was wrapped in specially made heavy armor. The armor was also equipped with mechanical weapons, including battleship turrets, battleship shields, and so on. It could be said that it was fully armed. Such a heavily armed giant dragon could be used as a battleship. The machinery and flesh created a sense of beauty. On this armor and dragon body, there were a large number of magic circuits, shining with a faint light. Clearly, they were enchanted. These are my armed dragon guards. Let them try the effect of the evolution cube first, Milizaus said. As a beyond grade A, he also had his own elite troops. The armed dragon guards were similar to Austin's forbidden sorcerers. Whoa, this guy looks really cool. Han Zhao's eyes sparkled. The image of such a giant being fully armed was really to his liking. After temporarily removing the seal on the evolution cube, Han Shao activated it. Black evolution energy surged out and wrapped around this armed dragon guard, forming an evolution black cocoon. Crack! Not long after, the black cocoon shattered like a newborn breaking out of an egg. In the sharp senses of the 3 beyond grade, as the aura of this armed dragon guard had become much stronger, its body had obviously become larger, and the heavy armor on its body did not fit well anymore. Roar! The armed dragon guard abruptly spat out a mouthful of dazzling silver-purple dragon breath into the sky. The surging light pillar was like a fountain that soared into the sky, continuously spreading out like a brilliant sea of light. Fragments of light that looked like broken jade exploded thousands of meters high in the air like fireworks. The momentum was astonishing. Looks like the effect is not bad. Baoni was a little jealous. If the females of the Balrog race were strengthened, they would be able to withstand more of his scorching essence. It would definitely be beneficial for the reproduction of his race. Milizaus was also very satisfied with what he had paid for. All right, this price it is. I'll buy 2,000 slots first. How could 2,000 be enough? Although your astral spiritual dragon race has a small population, there are at least 1,000,000 dragons, right? Buy more. Han Xiao chuckled. We'll talk about that later. Milizaus snorted. If you buy tens of thousands of slots at once, our astral spiritual dragon race can change its name to anemic dragon race. I have one more request. Han Xiao laughed dryly and sized up the armed dragon guard in front of him. I feel that your astral spiritual dragon race is quite beautiful. What do you want now? Milizaus was vigilant. Do you mind if I recruit a few astral spiritual dragons as partners? Don't even think about it. Milizaus was so angry that he almost could not maintain his magic incarnation. Partners? Do you think I didn't see that lustful look in your eyes? You probably want my people to be your mounts, right? This is too much. Why don't you just ride me? Milizaus had already read Han Zhao's information before coming, so he had some understanding of how thick Han Zhao's skin was. However, after interacting with him, the thickness of Han Zhao's skin still exceeded his expectations. Not only did he brazenly raise the price, but he even said that he wanted to ride his dragon descendants right in front of him. There was actually such a shameless beyond grade A. However, Milizaus was not disgusted. Instead, he liked Black Star's way of doing things. More than 80% of the beyond grade as in the universe were concerned about being cool, and he always had a cold face, afraid that others would not know that he was a big shot. Occasionally, he would meet someone with a different style, and he would be quite happy. After living for so long, one would either not care about anything or become more interested in new things. Milizaus and Aesop had a lot in common. They were both masochists. Central Galaxy, bright silver cantilever, Arcane Church's mother planet. In a huge hall, the bishops sat around a round table, discussing the issue of the evolution cube. Dispatching a large number of beyond grade A combatants at once was not a small matter, and it required the highest level of the Arcane Church to make a decision. Due to Cisco's incident, the bishops had different opinions. I think we should give up on this plan. As he spoke, a bishop stood up and said with a calm tone, "We've lost our connection to the evolution cube and are now in a dilemma. According to the latest intelligence, the dynasty has noticed our intentions, and Black Star has returned to the outpost on Planet Lighthouse, hiding under heavy protection. The dynasty has also assigned 2 bodyguards to him, Incinerate Baoni and Dragon King Milizaus. If we continue with our plan, we will be facing 3 high-level combatants of the Crimson Dynasty, which is already in the category of a head-on conflict, going against our original intentions. This will be our original intention. The security around Planet Lighthouse is tight. As long as our stowaway fleet appears in the surveillance sector of Planet Lighthouse, we will be discovered by the dynasty. At that time, we will be facing the garrison of Planet Lighthouse, who has completed their war preparations. The risk is too high. Everyone looked at him and remained silent. More importantly, we have lost the location of the evolution cube. If Black Star hides it, we will not be able to find it. Capturing Black Star alive is also an extremely difficult mission. The reward is not proportional to the risk. After pausing for a while, this bishop sighed. Let's give up on the evolution cube. Everyone could not refute and subconsciously turned to look at the main seat. It should have been the Pope's seat, but it was currently empty. However, everyone knew that the discussion had reached the ears of the Pope. The discussion had reached a stalemate, and the rest was up to the Pope. After waiting for a while, a 3D projection suddenly appeared in the middle of the round table, and a few lines of words appeared. This was the Pope's reply, and the bishops all looked over. The Pope's reply had a total of 4 messages. First, God has revealed that the evolution cube is still with Black Star. Second, the plan has been changed. We will attack Planet Lighthouse. Third, we have a new target. We are allowed to use the 10,000 deity scepter to try and kill Milizaus. Fourth, the Radiant Federation has agreed to provide assistance. Chapter 837. In a desolate universe belt in the flickering world, a secret Stargate station was hidden in the north of a desolate planet. It was a stronghold of the Church of Arcana's stowaways. This Stargate was equipped with all kinds of cloaking devices to hide its energy reaction and maintain its stealth state, preventing any type of radar from detecting it. The Arcane Church's technology was not inferior to the dynasties, but they each had their own strengths. During this period, the dynasty's exploration team had been tracking the stowaways of some supercluster civilizations, but they had never found the secret Stargate of the Arcane Church and the Radiant Federation. In order to maintain its secrecy, the Arcane Church would not frequently send military forces through the secret Stargate. This Stargate station was in a silent state most of the time. However, today, this Stargate station was activated. The spinning blue space energy in the Stargate ring suddenly accelerated, and battleships passed through the Stargate one after another. These battleships were not the standard vertical disc-shaped spaceships of the Arcane Church, but quadrangular pyramid-shaped spaceships. The edges of the spaceships flowed with red light, and the outer armor was pitch black. These quadrangular shuttle-shaped spaceships were one of the dozens of advanced armed spaceships commonly seen in the galaxy. They were sold on a large scale in the market, so it was impossible to identify them through their model. There were also no emblems on the surface of the spaceships to identify them. The Stargate continuously spat out more than 1 million battleships. It was a huge fleet. The Arcane Church officer in the stronghold watched this scene silently. He did not know the origin of this fleet. He only knew that this was a direct order from the upper echelons, telling him not to do anything and just to let this fleet leave. This mysterious fleet had no intention of communicating. The stronghold officer watched as this fleet turned around and quickly left, turning into a stream of light and disappearing from sight. I wonder what secret operation the upper echelons are planning. 1 million battleships. Are they going to war with the dynasty? The stronghold officer could not help but mutter. The Stargate station disappeared from the fleet's vision. In the command room of this mysterious fleet, a hooded man raised his head. It was an ES God doppelganger. Humph, Arcane Church. The ES God doppelganger snorted. ES God's main consciousness was controlling this doppelganger. This fleet was one of the Fallen Ark's divisions. ES God's organization was located in between the gaps of the central galaxy and would not leave easily. In order to quickly cross multiple star fields to reach the flickering world, they could only use Stargates. In order to allow ES God to deceive everyone, the Arcane Church had secretly built a Stargate in the desolate universe belt of the central galaxy a long time ago, secretly providing Stargate services to ES God's troops. Of course, this was only temporary. This team used the Stargate of the Arcane Church and quietly came to the flickering world. Although both sides were temporarily cooperating, ES God did not trust the Arcane Church easily. In order to prevent the Arcane Church from ambushing him, he only sent a doppelganger and a branch fleet to scout the way. The mission of this branch was to build his own secret Stargate in the flickering world and control his escape route. Stargates were the technology of star cluster civilizations, but the purpose of the black market was to allow people to buy things that could not be bought through normal channels. ES God had spent a huge amount of money to purchase the Stargate equipment from the black market. This was because in the entire universe, there were quite a number of star cluster civilizations, and Stargates were not a secret. ES God's main body would only personally come to the flickering world when he had a way out. Open the star map. The subordinate beside him operated the 3D star map, which was the star map of the flickering world. This was the information that the Arcane Church had sent to them. Although this was the dynasty's star map, the Arcane Church had a way to get their hands on the star map. However, this star map did not show the dynasty's military layout in the flickering world. This was a secret, and the Arcane Church would not be able to figure it out so easily. However, the dynasty's outpost, Planet Lighthouse, was highlighted on the star map. There were about 3 million battleships stationed on the planet, and there were more than 1 million patrol battleships around it. The dynasty had already invested a few 100 million battleships into the flickering world, but most of them were on the exploration mission. Naturally, they could not all be stationed on Planet Lighthouse. With more than 4 million battleships as a permanent garrison, Planet Lighthouse was already the dynasty's strongest planet in the flickering world. For a million, looks like we need to send more people over. The ES-God Doppelganger's tone was calm. The Fallen Ark was said to have 60 million battleships, but the actual number might be even higher. There was naturally a reason why the three universal civilizations were wary of him. In terms of strength, he was also one of the largest armed organizations in the galaxy. After pausing for a while, the ES-God Doppelganger took out his communicator and contacted the Arcane Church's agent liaison. The upper echelons of the Arcane Church would not personally contact a criminal like him, so the middleman would be a secret agent of the Arcane Church. The advantage was that they could claim that there was no such person in their organization at any time. My Vanguard troops are already in position. When will you move? In 20 days. We will inform you of the exact time in advance. We need you to cooperate with our troops. The ES-God Doppelganger said with a playful tone. How do we cooperate? According to the upper echelons, we will not appear together, so we have to split up. You will attack from the front and attract the defending troops of Planet Lighthouse. We will launch a sneak attack. The ES-God Doppelganger nodded. He understood the concerns of the Arcane Church. He also did not think that the beyond grade as of the Arcane Church would move together with him. Splitting up was within his expectations, and the strategy of the Arcane Church was also within his expectations. However, Planet Lighthouse's security perimeter covered the entire sector. His troops would not be able to avoid the dynasty surveillance, and the Arcane Church would not be able to do so either. A true sneak attack would not exist, and ES-God felt that this was just an exaggeration. It was just a matter of time for him to attract more firepower, and the Arcane Church would then enter the battlefield from another direction. ES-God was also not worried that the Arcane Church would watch him attract the firepower, because the moment his troops triggered the security perimeter of Planet Lighthouse, the dynasty would send the surrounding fleets to reinforce him. As the dynasty's outpost, Planet Lighthouse was the node of the Stargate network. The troops exploring outside would be able to rush back quickly, and he felt that the Arcane Church would not miss this opportunity. However, ES-God did not know that the plan of the Arcane Church this time was very different from what he had expected. A round table was placed in the dark room. There were more than a dozen seats, and at this time, only 6 of them were occupied. Calling them people was not too accurate. These 6 figures were all remote projections, and one of them was Cisco. Each of these seats represented the beyond grade A combatants of the Arcane Church. For this operation, the Arcane Church had sent out 6 beyond grade as at once. These 6 people were the majority of the strength that the Arcane Church could send out in the short term. The other beyond grade, as all had their own responsibilities, so that they could not move stealthily without attracting attention. The Arcane Church still had an additional external aid, ES-God, and their opponents were only Black Star, Milizaus, and Baoni. The difference in strength was completely overwhelming, and the Arcane Church was planning to deal a thunderous blow to the enemy. At this time, the 6 of them were casually chatting. Such a big operation, I haven't seen one in a long time. Milizaus, this dragon isn't easy to deal with. I've fought him before, but we couldn't kill each other and ended up in a tie. However, this time, he even used the 10,000 deity scepter. His chances of survival are very slim. The Arcane Church is crazy. Are they planning to start a war? Killing 3 beyond grade as from the Red Empire in one go. How can the Red Empire just take this line down? It might turn into an all-out war. This is what the Radiant Federation wants to see. That's why they agreed to help and even allowed us to borrow their universal treasure. The few beyond grade as shook their heads. This time, the Arcane Church was clearly going to make big news. What they were worried about was not the result of the operation. With such a huge difference in strength, it was basically impossible for them to fail. What they were worried about was the impact of the operation succeeding. It was foreseeable that killing 3 beyond grade, as from the dynasty, would result in a direct conflict between the Arcane Church and the Red Empire. As participants, they would be retaliated against by the dynasty. Although they were allies of the Arcane Church and were not afraid of the Red Empire, some of them had territories in other star fields. If they were targeted by the dynasty, they would be in trouble. Thus, some of them were not very willing to participate in this operation. However, as allies, they had received so many benefits. Even if they were unwilling, they could only helplessly respond to the call of the Arcane Church. If Cisco didn't lose the evolution cube, this operation wouldn't have happened. Someone snorted and pushed the blame to Cisco. Cisco glanced at him and confirmed that he was someone he could not beat, so he did not refute. Since the Arcane Church has launched such a large-scale operation, even if they get the evolution cube back, they won't return it to you, another person said with a deep voice. I know. Cisco's expression did not change. As long as it's not in the hands of others, I can accept it. TSK. If Black Star had returned the evolution cube to you back then, he wouldn't have gotten into trouble today. It seems like Black Star is the fastest super to reach beyond grade A in history. He was too greedy. What a pity. Someone shook his head and said with a regretful tone, who told him to take something he shouldn't have? Serve him right, Cisco said coldly. He knew that after the Arcane Church succeeded, the evolution cube would not return to him. However, because the evolution cube was isolated by Han Shao, his soul connection with the evolution cube was broken. Thus, he lost the enhancement of his psychic energy, so his request was lowered. Even if the Arcane Church took back the evolution cube, as long as his soul connection was maintained, Cisco could accept it. And Han Shao was the cause of all this, causing him to lose the evolution cube. Cisco was filled with anger, and he would not let go of this opportunity to get rid of Han Shao. Personal grudges were one thing. On the other hand, Black Star's organization was also in the Shattered Star Ring. Because of their hostile relationship, Black Star had become an obstacle to the development of the star pupil Protoss. The previous Civilization Conference was an example. Even if it was for the development of the civilization, Cisco had to get rid of this obstacle, Black Star. A beyond grade, sitting beside Cisco, seemed to understand what Cisco was thinking. He patted Cisco's shoulder and said, Don't worry, I will help you get rid of Black Star. Thanks, Dylan. Although Cisco was not in a good mood, he still smiled at this person. We will deal with him together. Dylan nodded, and his seaweed-like dark green hair swayed in the wind. His skin was blue, and his face was covered in small scales. His facial features were a little like a fish's, and he had a pair of big, shiny eyes that would blink occasionally. There was also a crack on his forehead, and there was a striking third eye. His hands and feet had web-like structures, and there was an eyeball in each of his palms. His spine was bent, making him look hunchbacked, and there was a dorsal fin on his back. He looked like an aquatic creature. It was unknown what his ancestors had done to the fish, or perhaps the fish had done something to his ancestors. Looking like this, his ability was definitely related to water. Dylan was an Esper with the nicknames Sea Spirit and Ocean Ruler. His Esper ability was to control water, which sounded ordinary and did not seem to have much combat strength in the universe. However, there were no weaklings among the Beyond Grade A supers. Due to the strength of the ability unique to Beyond Grade, as Dylan could compress water to an extreme, forming an indestructible cutting force that could easily cut through battleships. Not only that, he could also convert water into high-energy laser beams that were comparable to battleship weapons. At the same time, his body could store a huge amount of water, enough to flood the surface of a planet and turn it into an ocean. Such an Esper ability was not very suitable for one-on-one battles, but it was good for team battles and was best to control. After joining the Arcane Church for so many years, Cisco had friends, and Dylan was one of them. He was Cisco's best friend among the Beyond Grade A allies. Perhaps it was because the two of them had many eyes and shared a common language. On the mother planet of the Radiant Federation, Federation President Bader was also paying attention to the Arcane Church's actions. It was his decision to provide assistance to the Arcane Church. With our help, as long as the Arcane Church does not underestimate the enemy, the success rate of this operation will be higher than 95%. At least one beyond grade A will die on the side of the Red Empire, Bader said confidently. A beyond grade A life is enough to provoke a conflict between the Arcane Church and the Red Empire. This is very beneficial to us. The Chief Elder nodded approvingly. The reason the Radiant Federation helped the Arcane Church was because they wanted to sit on the mountain and watch the tigers fight. If the Arcane Church and the Red Empire fought, they would be able to benefit from it. The Arcane Church also knew this, but they still decided to continue with the operation. Furthermore, cooperating with ES God was not a good thing, so the Arcane Church did not tell the Radiant Federation. The Radiant Federation had also been dragged into the matter by the Arcane Church, so it would be difficult to use this against them. Although both sides had their own plans, they had the same goal at the same time, which was to put pressure on the Red Empire and take away their energy. They wanted to test the Red Empire's attitude and see if there was a chance to take over. As for whether the dynasties beyond grade A that was killed was Milizau's or Blackstar, it made no difference to Bader. He did not care at all. Chapter 838. Flickering World, Dawn Star Cluster, Dynasty Outpost Planet Lighthouse. In Base Number 4's combat training room, a spar was underway. Bang! The mechanical fist collided with the hardened fist, and an obvious shockwave was created. Hadavi grabbed Psionic Prime's fist and threw him forward, shattering the defense line formed by the mechanical soldiers with a loud thud. Behind the defensive line, Han Xiao took a step forward and casually shot out a beam of mechanical force, pulling Psionic Prime, who was about to fly past him, down to help him stabilize his body. Immediately after, a flash of lightning appeared in Han Xiao's eyes. At the same time, a psionic barrier appeared on the path Hardaway was charging toward. The barrier was right in front of him, and Hardaway smashed into it. Boom! Not bad, a good head. The corners of Han Xiao's mouth curled up, and he clenched his fist. The wall-like psionic barrier instantly shrunk into a ball of light and exploded in front of Hadavi's face. A blue energy light burst out and sent Hadavi flying, crashing into the wall of the training room. Boom! The metal plate was bent and broken, and a human-shaped hole appeared on the wall. The mechanical soldiers around him began to focus their firepower, and psionic beams shot out continuously, gathering in the holes in the wall one after another. Rumble! The dazzling light of the explosion turned the room white. At this time, a red light suddenly shot out from behind Han Xiao, piercing through more than 10 mechanical soldiers and shooting toward the back of Han Xiao's head. Psionic Prime instantly split into his floating cannon form and activated a psionic shield to block Han Xiao's back. The red light hit the blue shield and shattered into pieces. Han Xiao slowly turned around and looked. Hela was behind him, shooting out death energy time and time again. Facing Han Xiao, she did not dare get close and could only harass him from afar. In this spar, all the Black Star Guards would challenge Han Xiao together. In order to achieve a good training effect, Han Xiao naturally would not summon all of his mechanical soldiers. He only used 1,000 mechanical soldiers and did not use the human wave tactic. He basically relied on all kinds of mechanical equipment to fight. The training room was now a mess. Almost all of the Black Star Guards had been beaten to the ground. Only Hela and Hardaway were still holding on, and the two of them were also in a very sorry state. Come here, little darling. Han Xiao extended his hand toward Hela from afar, and the mechanical components quickly wrapped around his arm. Mechanical force flashed across the surface of the components, and he clenched his fist tightly. A strong gravitational force was released from the mechanical suit's arm, making a whistling sound. The mechanical soldiers along the way dodged, and a gap appeared in the defense line. The position of the gap changed as Hela moved. Hela instantly felt an extremely strong pulling force pulling her toward Han Xiao. Her eyes were bright red, and energy wrapped around her body to resist the pull of the gravitational device. However, her speed was unavoidably reduced. Seeing that the gravitational device did not work, Han Xiao raised his brows. His body shook, and 5 powerful traction beam triggers in the shape of suction cups appeared behind his back. They floated behind his head and activated at the same time. Hum! The huge gravitational force stacked together, and Hela was instantly pulled over. She gave up on resisting and increased her flying speed, instantly closing in on Han Xiao. She concentrated energy in her leg, and a powerful whip kick was powerful enough to shatter a mountain. Han Xiao was unmoved, and the latest generation of Battle Tiger mechanical suit instantly appeared on the surface of his body. Klala. The black mechanical suit covered his entire body, and only his head was exposed. Han Xiao bent his arm and used his forearm to meet Hela's whip kick. Boom! The long leg, wrapped in energy, struck the forearm of the mechanical suit. The nanoparticles on the surface of the mechanical suit undulated like waves, diverting the force to the leg and the back. Boom! The next moment, a shock wave appeared under Han Xiao's feet. The metal ground was twisted and bent, and the excess force turned into a whistling wave that blew away the surrounding smoke and dust. After receiving this kick, Han Xiao's raised forearm was like a statue, and it did not move. Although Hela's close combat was not bad, she was not a pugilist, and her attributes were suppressed. Her close combat did not pose any threat to Han Xiao. Han Xiao did not stop moving, and the arm that blocked the attack suddenly stretched forward, clasped Hela's neck, and slammed her to the ground with a loud bang. Ugh! Hela fell heavily to the ground. She gritted her teeth and resisted. Her sexy body twisted under Han Xiao's body, but she was like a snake that was tightly clenched, unable to escape from Han Xiao's palm. At this time, Hela's vision turned black. Han Xiao leaned forward, his face almost touching hers, and a smug look appeared on his face. Awkward, I caught you. The battle is over. With your physique, you can't escape from my control. Hearing this, Hela stopped resisting. She bit her lips and looked at Han Xiao. Their eyes were less than 10 centimeters apart, and their breaths were on each other's face. Han Xiao's nose twitched, and a delicate fragrance entered his nose. Suddenly, his face became a little strange. It smells so good. Did you use perfume? Or is it your body fragrance? Let go. Oh, okay. Han Xiao let go of his hand, straightened his back, and was about to pull Hela up. However, Hela ignored his hand, got up, and patted the dust off her clothes. Seeing Hela's expressionless face, Han Xiao shook his head helplessly. After sparring so many times, he knew Hela's personality too well. Even though she knew the difference between them was huge, Hela would still be in a bad mood every time she lost. The mechanical army also stopped fighting. The crater on the wall had expanded many times. It was dark and bottomless, and the sound of metal pieces being moved could be heard. After a while, Hardaway crawled out of the crater. As he walked toward Han Xiao, he tore off the burnt skin on his body. The mechanical devices that imprisoned the various Black Star Guards were all retracted, and the various Black Star Guards walked over while rubbing their chests. They were all in a sorry state. Among them, the one with the most decent appearance was Fu Ding. There was only some dust on his body, but there were no injuries. The main reason was that Han Xiao could not bear to hit him. He could not bear to hit this charming face of his. They were all handsome, so it was only right to give them some special treatment. How satisfying! Hardaway grinned, and a satisfied expression appeared on his burnt face. Han Xiao ignored him, looked at the time, and said, "You guys lasted 37 seconds longer than last time. You've improved." Even the weakest of these Black Star Guards was an elite calamity grade, and it was difficult for them to improve further. Among them, only Hela and Fu Ding had the most significant improvements. The two of them were extremely talented, and they might be able to become beyond grade A seeds in 20 to 30 years. As for breaking through to beyond grade A, in Han Zhao's opinion, only Hela, who had proven her strength in his previous life, had a higher chance of doing so. However, she did not slaughter planets like in his previous life, so her improvement speed was not as crazy. The training room is too small, and it limits the distance I can move. I'm within the range of the tractor beam. If I'm in an unrestricted environment, I'll be able to last longer. I'll have to pay more attention to this next time. Hela summarized her experience with a frown. Just as Han Xiao was about to say something, his communicator rang. He had received a message. Taking a look, Han Xiao smiled and said, "You guys continue with your training. Terakov and the other two are looking for me for a chat." After staying on Planet Lighthouse for more than half a month, Han Xiao had already gotten familiar with Milizhao's. Since he had nothing to do, the chief commander of the exploration army, Terakov, would often invite the three of them to have tea and chat to pass the time. Hearing this, Hela wanted to say something, but did not, as though she wanted to continue receiving Han Zhao's training. However, in the end, she still nodded and started training with the Black Star Guards. She then watched Han Xiao leave the training room from the corner of her eyes. Walking in the corridor, Han Xiao entered the quantum network. "Philip, did the long-range patrol team discover anything today?" Reporting to Master, "No. The Arcane Church still did not take any action today." Han Xiao nodded. Even though he was under the protection of the dynasty, Han Xiao did not lower his guard. During the past half a month on Planet Lighthouse, he had not been idle. Other than building machinery and training the Black Star Guards, he had also sent out long-range mechanical troops to join the patrol team on Planet Lighthouse. They would patrol this sector and report to him every day. As soon as they discovered traces of the Arcane Church, he would be able to receive the news immediately. The reason Han Xiao stayed on Planet Lighthouse was not only because it was heavily guarded, but also because Planet Lighthouse was an outpost of the dynasty and was connected to many stargates. Once the patrol team discovered traces of the enemy, this sector would become a buffer zone. If the enemy was too strong, he would have enough time to retreat through these stargates. Han Xiao would not let himself fall into a dangerous situation so easily. He had plenty of escape routes on Planet Lighthouse. The past half a month had been peaceful, but Han Xiao had a feeling that a storm was coming. He felt that the Arcane Church did not seem to have given up on the Evolution Cube. He would occasionally use the Evolution Cube on Milizhao's armed dragon guards, and when he used it, the space-time amber would naturally be removed. Therefore, Psychers should be able to receive intermittent signals during this period, just like a network connection that kept disconnecting and reconnecting. The enemy is in the dark, and I am in the light. The Arcane Church has the initiative, so I can only deal with whatever comes my way. Han Xiao shook his head and habitually opened the forums to take a look. The exploration work had been very smooth during this period. Although Ravenlouty had obtained some convenience through the Stargate he had built, most of the resource planets along the way had been occupied by the Black Star Corps. Ravenlouty could not snatch territory under the dynasty's nose and could only explore other areas. The players have been working hard to explore and obtained a large number of mission points. The ordinary players from China, Russia, and Australia did missions together, and their relationship became more harmonious. However, the friction between the three guilds became more and more intense. This was all because of the competition for resource locations. During this period, the Black Star Corps headquarters had sent a new batch of troops to supplement the exploration team. Many of them were the second batch of players from the Constellation Corridor. The Russian and Australian guilds had decided to temporarily join forces and sent a new batch of guild players back to support the branches in an attempt to break the suppression of the Chinese guilds. The Russian and Australian branches had more people, and their confidence grew. They were no longer willing to stay in third-rate resource locations and began to try to fight for better ones. As a result, the friction between them and the Chinese guilds increased day by day. If this continues, it will probably turn into a large-scale guild war. If these clubs incite the ordinary players in their country, it might even turn into a national war, Han Xiao guessed. However, this was the internal behavior of the players, and he could not and did not want to stop it. The reason he had allowed the ordinary players of the three countries to befriend each other was to prevent them from being hostile toward each other. Now, this plan was rather successful. The relationship between the ordinary players was harmonious, and even if they joined the national war to join in the fun, they would still be good friends after the war. After all, most of the players had a characteristic: they could be enemies and friends at the same time. Han Xiao walked all the way to the Commander-in-Chief's office and saw Terakov, Bayoni, and Milizhao's sitting on the sofa. In front of them was a table filled with the dynasty's special drinks, as well as the evil Wayne cards. The Wayne cards were popular in the universe, and even beyond grade, as had entertainment needs. Black Star, it's your turn. Quick, take a seat. Hearing the sound of the door being pushed open, the three of them turned around. Bayoni even waved his hand. Han Shao nodded and sat down beside Milizaos. He took a sip from his cup and smacked his lips. Why did you drink mine? Milizaos said with dissatisfaction. You're just an energy avatar, and you don't have a sense of taste. Don't waste good stuff. Han Zhao's expression did not change. After half a month of interaction, the few of them had become much closer, and he had a better understanding of Milizao's personality. Although this guy was strong, he did not put on any airs and was easier to get along with than that Dark Emperor Claudi. Compared to the first time they met, Han Zhao's attitude toward Milizao's was much more casual now, although he did not seem to respect him much at the start. So, you guys have also been on Planet Lighthouse for almost a month. If not for you guys, I wouldn't be slacking off every day. Terakov sighed. He had always been on Planet Lighthouse and did not have anyone of the same status as him to communicate with. However, Han Shao and the other two had been on Planet Lighthouse for half a month, and this commander-in-chief finally showed his lazy side. Actually, I've always been very curious. What is the relationship between Claudi and Unravel? I feel that it is not as simple as being her bodyguard. Milizao's tone was curious. As the leader of the dynasty, you have to have a family. Unravel is a widow, and Claudi is a hardcore supporter of the leader. The marriage laws of the dynasty were monogamous, but Bayoni felt that it had nothing to do with him. TSK, although I admit that I'm a gentle person, I'm still a top military officer of the dynasty. Is it really okay for you to talk about the leader in front of me? Terakov was helpless. I don't know. Even if I did, I wouldn't tell you. Milizaos snorted and casually slapped down a Wayne card. He changed the topic and said, "You lost." Terakov was stunned. He looked at the cards in his hand and asked suspiciously, "Did you use magic to change my cards again? Don't be shameless. Would I do something so lame?" Milizaos was angry. "Actually, you would. I didn't King see this card in your hand just now." Han Shao could not help but think of Lagi. Lagi had a famous saying when he was playing cards. Only trash would cheat with magic. From then on, he knew that the only thing that could stop a mage from cheating was a stronger mage among the three of them. One was lazy, one was playing with fire, and one was playing with machines. Obviously, no one could stop a mage from cheating. Looking at the few of them chatting casually, Han Shao could not help but feel relaxed. This is what life is like. Before he could finish lamenting, there was a sudden change. Woo woo woo. An ear-piercing alarm sounded without any warning, and the four of them suddenly stopped what they were doing. Tarakov's expression immediately turned serious. He stood up and opened a real-time star map to check the situation. At the same time, Han Shao also received a long-distance report from Philip. Master, Team 025 discovered traces of a large fleet heading toward Planet Lighthouse. The image changed. A mysterious fleet entered the security sector of Planet Lighthouse and triggered the alarm. This fleet was made up of quadrangular pyramid-shaped spaceships. At a glance, there were probably a few million of them. The mysterious fleet had already engaged the dynasty's patrol fleet in that direction and broke through the defense line. It was obvious that they had the intention of attacking Planet Lighthouse. Han Xiaoxin's heart sank. Arcane Church? They're really here. Chapter 839. At the same time as the alarm sounded on Planet Lighthouse, the 3 million battleships of the Fallen Ark formed a long dragon-like formation at the edge of the alert sector and continued to penetrate deeper into the defense line. Inside the flagship, God and his subordinate Hakazin looked at the star map. The distance between Planet Lighthouse, which was marked as a red target, and them was getting closer and closer. Boss, we've already entered the alert range of Planet Lighthouse. The radar shows that the patrolling Dynasty fleet is heading toward us and will engage in battle very soon. Hakazin scratched the back of his neck with his long tongue as he spoke. Try to speed up. Don't get caught. God's tone was calm. This time, it was not his doppelganger but his main body. Hakuzen clicked his tongue and said, "Even though we're working together, the Arcane Church is still wary of us." Not only did they not reveal their exact plan, they even changed the location of their secret Stargate. They're obviously wary of us. We don't know when they'll attack and where they'll attack from. God did not mind. Working together was like asking a tiger for its skin, so it was normal for them to be wary of each other. It was just like how he would not tell the Arcane Church where his secret Stargate was. With Planet Lighthouse as the center, the alert sector was extremely large. Once the enemy was discovered, there would be plenty of time to mobilize the troops. They would not be able to reach Planet Lighthouse in a short time. Therefore, although the Arcane Church was moving in secret, God could guess what they were thinking. They wanted him to be the vanguard. With the size of his fleet, it was not enough for the dynasty to give up on the outpost on Planet Lighthouse. The Arcane Church would only attack after he fought his way to Planet Lighthouse and tied down Black Star and the other two beyond grade as. The reason they did this was to prevent the enemy from running away. God felt that he had guessed the intentions of the Arcane Church. The only suspense was how many high-level combatants the Arcane Church would send this time. The dynasty had 3 beyond grade as, and Milizau's combat power could barely be compared to his. Thus, the Arcane Church only needed to deal with Black Star and Bayoni. Furthermore, there was still quite a gap between the strength of these two individuals and the top beyond grade as. To be safe, the Arcane Church would only need to send out 4 beyond grade as to crush them. I wonder who the Arcane Church sent this time. God narrowed his eyes. If the person who came was too strong, he would have to be careful and not be taken advantage of. At this time, the Empire's fleet finally arrived and appeared on the radar. Hakuzen looked at God's expression. Seeing that his boss had no intention of speaking, he gave the order for God. "Fire at will. Destroy all the enemy ships in our way." Planet Lighthouse had entered the highest alert state, and the 3 beyond grade as followed Terakov to the command room. A large number of officers were gathered in the room. Countless messages were sent back from the battlefield for them to handle. Terakov stood in front of the huge projection of the battlefield with his hands behind his back and a serious expression on his face. The projection of the battlefield was the scene of the battle between the fallen Ark fleet and the dynasty's perimeter patrol fleet. The spaceships of both sides had shrunk countless times, and it was as though too many fleets were fighting in front of everyone. Around the projection of the battlefield was a star map of the perimeter sector. Planet Lighthouse was highlighted, and a red line extended out from the projection to connect to the enemy fleet. This represented the current distance between the two parties. There are about 2 million enemy spaceships. This is a huge fleet. To be able to send such a fleet into the flickering world, this organization must be very powerful. "We can't see the spaceships from their spaceships," an adjutant said. "It's most likely the Arcane Church." As he spoke, Terakov glanced at Han Shao and said, "However, we can't rule out the possibility of other organizations." Han Shao noticed his gaze and said with certainty, "It's definitely the Arcane Church." Terakov glanced at him again and nodded slowly. "Understood." Han Shao looked calm, but his heart was extremely heavy. "You have triggered an emergency mission, cause and effect." Mission introduction. You stole the evolution cube and attracted the hostility of the Arcane Church. Today, they finally took action and decided to give you a thunderous blow to take back the evolution cube in your hands. Mission requirements. Defeat the enemy or escape successfully. Failure conditions. 1. Death. 2. Loss of the evolution cube. Reward. 240 billion, 450 billion experience, plus 1 legendary point, x3 random reward, x3 unknown character summon cards. When he saw the reward, Han Shao was shocked. At least 24 billion experience points? Back when he fought Heber, the highest level reward was only 5 billion experience points. Even from his point of view, this was a huge amount of experience points. Han Shao could not be happy at all because the reward was proportional to the difficulty. Such a high reward meant that the strength of the Arcane Church's attack this time would be unprecedentedly terrifying. The highest reward was more than 40 billion experience points. This meant that there would be more than 5 beyond grade as. Who would be able to handle that? Although Han Xiao had secretly asked for reinforcements to be on the safe side and could not help but have thoughts of retreating, he was also cautious. If he escaped through the Stargate now, it should be very safe. However, if he succeeded in escaping, the lowest reward would be more than 20 billion experience points. Would it be so easy to complete the mission? Maybe the Arcane Church had some unknown means, and if he escaped now, he would be caught alone. He was under heavy protection and could be considered safe for now. If he ran the moment he saw the enemy, he would be looked down upon by the dynasty. After considering for a while, Han Xiao did not act rashly, but followed Terakov to the command room to observe the situation. The buffer zone was large enough. It would not be too late for him to decide if he wanted to escape or not. The mission is called Karma. It's indeed not so easy to obtain other people's universal treasures. Han Xiao smirked. However, no one present knew what he was thinking. Terakov observed the changes on the battlefield and slowly gave an order. Inform all the dynasty's allies that went out to explore. All beyond Grade A combatants are to return immediately and reinforce Planet Lighthouse as soon as possible. Hearing this, Han Xiao's eyes sparkled, and he nodded. It was obvious that Terakov had noticed this as well. This commander-in-chief had good foresight. There were still 3 beyond grade as from the dynasty exploring the flickering world: Heber, Raven Loudy, and that mechanic Max Similar whom he had met before. If all of them returned, the 6 beyond grade as would be gathered, and they would not be afraid of the enemy at all. Without knowing how many high-level combatants the Arcane Church had, Terakov did not want to make a big fuss. His style was to be steady and not be afraid of trouble. Even if it turned out to be unnecessary, it was better than regretting it. The dynasty's fleet has sent a request for reinforcements. They are unable to stop the enemy. Chief Commander, should we send reinforcements from the surrounding areas? Terakov narrowed his eyes and observed for a while. Only mobilize the troops in that direction. Don't move the troops in the other directions. The rest will be sent by the headquarters on Planet Lighthouse. Bayoni was a little surprised. Dispatching a fleet from the headquarters will take a lot of time, and this group of enemies will be able to advance for a very long time. Why don't we directly mobilize the troops in the surrounding areas? Terakov said with a deep voice, the enemy's fleet is alone, and they do not have any markings. I believe that they are not the main force of the Arcane Church, but a vanguard. Their goal is to distract our outer defense line and create a gap in the alert sector. Their main force will take advantage of the loopholes in the security sector and charge in from other directions, forming a 2-pronged attack, or even a multi-pronged attack. This should be the Arcane Church's tactic. Hearing the chief commander's explanation, everyone looked at the situation carefully and had to admit that this was the most likely plan of the enemy. Terakov had seen through it, and there was nothing wrong with this method. However, this is only a temporary solution. What we need next is intelligence. We have to find out how many beyond grade as are in this fleet. Terakov turned to look at the 3 of them. His meaning was obvious. Only those of the same level could force those of the same level to take action. Leave it to my long-range troops. Han Xiao nodded. He was the target of the enemy and the key figure in this battle. Under such circumstances, it was not appropriate for the 3 beyond grade as to be separated. The long-range troops that he had sent out during this period could be put to good use. What? Planet Lighthouse is under attack? In the Renault Star cluster, in the Bloodshed Land fleet, Heber, who was taking a bath on a star, quickly received the news from Jode. His expression could not help but change. The enemy is the Arcane Church, and the target is Black Star. Chief Commander Terakov wants us to go back and provide support. Your Excellency, Tyrant, what should we do? Jode asked carefully. Heber frowned. The 2 of them still had some grudges, and he did not want to help Black Star. However, he then thought of something, and his brows slowly relaxed. Since it's an order from a dynasty, let's go and provide support. Inform my main fleet to head to the nearest Stargate at full speed. Heber's fleet quickly turned around and headed toward the Stargate leading to Planet Lighthouse. Although he had some grudges with Han Shao, this matter concerned the dynasty's dignity. As a member of the dynasty, protecting the dynasty's status was in line with his own interests. On the other side, in the Garustar Cluster Arcane Research Institute fleet, Raven Loudy also received Tarakov's request for help. After reading it, he remained expressionless. Black Star's life and death had nothing to do with him. He could not wait to have one less competitor. Unfortunately, his organization was in the Central Galaxy, and he had to rely on the dynasty's protection. It was not appropriate to go against the dynasty's orders for such a small matter, so he could only bring his men to provide support. Very soon, he discovered an annoying thing. The Stargate transportation network that Black Star had built in the Garustar cluster instantly became a fast reinforcement channel, making it more convenient for him to rush over. Even if he wanted to delay midway, he had no excuse. Right at this moment, Raven Loudy had a flash of inspiration and suddenly realized something. Could it be that Black Star had calculated this in advance by building the long-distance Stargate? That must be it. Otherwise, he really could not imagine why Black Star would give up his own interests to build a long-distance Stargate. Raven Loudy finally understood Black Star's true intention. Before this, he had actually laughed at the other party's idea. Even if he was not thin-skinned, he could not help but feel a little embarrassed. God's fleet gradually went deep into the security sector, fighting the dynasty's fleet as they advanced. The dynasty's fleet released bubbles along the way, stabilizing the space-time coefficient and preventing both sides from entering hyperdrive. God's fleet inevitably slowed down and was constantly harassed. Millions of battleships exchanged fire, forming a scene of a large-scale galactic war. Dazzling energy beams of various colors crisscrossed, tearing through the pitch-black universe. Silently, they carried a biting, cold, killing intent. Spaceships were destroyed one after another, turning into fireworks in the universe. On the battlefield, there was a group of special combat units. They were the long-range mechanical troops that Han Shao had sent out. Like a flock of crows, they shuttled back and forth in the formation of the fallen Ark fleet. Between the flashes of mechanical force and the rumbling of thunder, they shot out psionic energy beams one after another, exploding on the shields and outer armor of the quadrangular battleships one after another. This mechanical army had more than 100,000 mechanical soldiers, and they were in the state of mechanical force bonuses. Their performance had increased tremendously, reaching the level of a beyond grade A super. They were invincible on the battlefield, destroying a large number of enemy spaceships, and the speed of their own casualties was rather slow. Energy explosion. Another 3 enemy battleships were destroyed. Just as the mechanical army was about to search for the next target, a black and red energy beam passed through the explosion of the spaceships and blasted into the formation of the mechanical army, instantly devouring half of the army. After the beam of light passed through, the mechanical soldiers that were hit had already turned into charred parts. Han Shao, who was remotely controlling the situation on Planet Lighthouse, narrowed his eyes. The enemy beyond grade A has made his move. This attack power is not ordinary. Through the vision of the mechanical army, Han Shao stared in the direction of the attack, wanting to see who the enemy was. God's figure instantly appeared in his vision. The next moment, Tarakov, Milizow's, and Bayoni saw Han Zhao's expression change. Did you see clearly? Who was the enemy? Tarakov hurriedly asked. Han Shao exhaled and said with a solemn expression, "It's actually God, and it's his main body." As soon as he said that, the few of them were stunned. Isn't the enemy the Arcane Church? Why is God here? Bayoni was shocked. As he had fought with God before, he knew how strong God was and was extremely wary. Tarakov's expression became even more solemn. The Arcane Church must have provided God with help and allowed him to leave the Central Galaxy. Damn it, for the Evolution Cube. They actually worked together with such a person. God's strength was renowned throughout the universe, but this time they also had a peak beyond grade A who had been famous for a long time. Milizow's shook his head and said, "I've fought with God many times before, and it's not a problem for me to stop him. However, I can't be distracted when dealing with this fellow, or I won't be able to do anything else. Other than ES God, the Arcane Church definitely has other high-level combatants. The situation is not good for us. Chief Commander, what do you think? Hearing that, Tarakov fell into deep thought. On the surface, the enemy only had ES God and millions of battleships. In the dark, there were at least 3 beyond grade, and even more battleships. On their side, they only had 3 beyond grade, as in 4 million or so battleships on Planet Lighthouse. Their strength was naturally inferior, but with the depth of the alert sector, they had the capital to stall for time. Furthermore, the Dynasty had even more battleships in this star field that were rushing over from various regions to reinforce them. Tarakov was currently considering if they should retreat immediately or hold on until reinforcement arrived. The enemy's target was Black Star. If they retreated now, they should be able to protect Black Star. However, the Dynasty's outpost would definitely be destroyed by the enemy. Losing resources was secondary. The main reason was to prevent the enemy from controlling the Stargate, so they had to close it. Then, the Dynasty would temporarily lose the core of the Stargate transportation network, and their mobility would be greatly reduced. Thinking about that, he looked at the battle situation again. Other than the Dynasty's battleships that were fighting ES God, the other battleships in the alert sector did not make any moves and maintained their vigilance in their respective areas. Previously, he had even sent out a portion of the Planet Lighthouse's battleships to act as a quick reaction force to save time and prevent the second wave of enemies from attacking. After thinking about it, Tarakov sighed and said with a deep voice, "Although the situation is not good, we have the capital to hold on. Try our best to stall for time. As long as the reinforcements arrive, we'll be safe. Woo woo woo." Before he could finish, an ear-piercing alarm sounded in the command room. Warning, warning, abnormal space-time fluctuations detected outside the planet. Space-time fluctuations forming a wormhole. Wormhole? A teleportation gate? Tarakov's face was filled with shock. The appearance of the wormhole had indeed shocked him, but it was not because he was unprepared. With the Crimson Dynasty's technology, Planet Lighthouse would definitely be equipped with a device to interrupt the teleportation. As a universal civilization, it was impossible for the Arcane Church not to know about this. What he did not understand was why the Arcane Church would make such an attempt that was destined to be futile. The image was transmitted back. Right outside the orbit of Planet Lighthouse, a distorted space suddenly appeared. This was the sign of a wormhole being formed. The troops stationed on Planet Lighthouse also reacted immediately and activated the device to stabilize the space. The effect was to directly interrupt the formation of the wormhole, regardless of whether it was caused by magic or technology. However, what happened next stunned everyone present. The artificial wormhole countermeasure device that had always worked did not work. The distortion in space did not stop, but the wormhole did not appear. Instead, a strange scene occurred. Blurry silhouettes of battleships gradually appeared in outer space, like a mirage. While they were still in a daze, in the next moment, the wrinkled space seemed to be flattened by an invisible iron. These phantoms suddenly became solid, and in the blink of an eye, they turned from illusory illusions into real entities. This fleet was actually the spaceship of the Arcane Church. There were also millions of battleships, including the famous Butterfly flagship. In an instant, millions of battleships descended on Planet Lighthouse. They directly ignored the depth of Planet Lighthouse. Instead, because Planet Lighthouse had sent out many battleships, the defense of Planet Lighthouse was weakened. This was the strategy of the Arcane Church. Tarakov suddenly thought of something, and his expression changed drastically. This isn't a wormhole teleportation. Only the strategic universal treasure of the Radiant Federation, the multidimensional sky opening transportation device, has such an effect. The Arcane Church actually joined forces with the Radiant Federation. Chapter 840. Multidimensional Sky Opening Transportation Device. Han Xiaoxin was shocked. He was not unfamiliar with this item. This was a universal treasure that the Radiant Federation had invested countless resources into, and it was their special technology. Just like how the evolutionary civilization had created the evolution cube, civilizations that had reached the level of universal treasures had basically created universal treasures. The principle behind this item was related to high-dimensional projection and materialization. An army would be teleported to the target location and then restored to its original dimension, achieving the effect of crossing dimensions. To be specific, it was like turning the universe into a flat two-dimensional picture, and the teleported army became a three-dimensional object. Because the obstacles in the two-dimensional picture would not affect the three-dimensional image, the teleported object could move freely on the surface of the two-dimensional picture. Normal artificial wormhole countermeasures would not be able to counter the multi-dimensional sky opening transportation device. This technology had been the trump card of the Radiant Federation since the exploration era, allowing their fleet to have extremely high mobility. It was extremely terrifying from a war perspective. Relying on this technology, the Radiant Federation had defeated countless strong enemies in the exploration era and survived all the way to the new era. There were also disadvantages. First, the resources consumed for each use were extremely shocking, increasing with the distance and the number of units teleported. Second, the charging time was very long. Third, ultra-long distance teleportation required precise positioning and a long period of guidance. Fourth, the multidimensional sky opening transportation device was a large equipment similar to a Stargate and would not be teleported out together. Thus, the troops that were sent out could not be retrieved through the same method unless they brought another multidimensional sky opening transportation device. Of course, the Radiant Federation would not hand over their special universal treasure to the Arcane Church. The condition of cooperation was to teleport them over, but they were not obligated to help them retreat. *T, the Radiant Federation actually intervened. Looking at the image of the Arcane Church's fleet descending, everyone in the command room was shocked, and their hearts sank to the bottom. Han Xiao also did not expect the enemy to work together with the Radiant Federation and be immune to the wormhole countermeasures, using special means to directly descend on Planet Lighthouse. The cooperation between the Arcane Church and the Radiant Federation was beyond his expectation. Both of them had done such a good job of keeping secrets that the Empire's intelligence channels did not receive any information beforehand. Terekov had predicted that the enemy would launch a sneak attack from the outside, so he had sent out quite a number of battleships. As a result, Planet Lighthouse's defense was rather weak, and there were only about 1 million battleships left. On the other hand, the millions of enemy battleships were floating in the outer space of Planet Lighthouse, bringing about immense pressure. The situation took a turn for the worse, and Planet Lighthouse was forced into a dangerous situation. The combat room became completely silent. Everyone's expressions were grim and shocked, and a great sense of danger rose in their hearts. Terekov broke the silence and maintained his composure. Apart from stopping God's troops, the other fleets are to return immediately. There's no need to be on guard anymore. Also, inform the guards at the Stargate stations to blow up all the Stargates. We cannot let them fall into the enemy's hands. Blow up Planet Lighthouse's Stargate station? You're crazy. That's our only way out. Bayoni was shocked and furious. Terekov was expressionless. The Stargate station is too close to Planet Lighthouse, and the Arcane Church will definitely send out troops to snatch it. Our strength is at a disadvantage, and if we forcefully defend, we will only continue to scatter the troops at Planet Lighthouse. God and the Arcane Church's fleet is almost twice the size of ours. We won't be able to fight on two fronts, and we definitely won't be able to defend. We can't split up any more troops at this juncture. But without the Stargates, our only way out, we're already in a desperate situation, and there's no way out. Terekov was resolute. Our only hope is to gather all our troops and make use of the defense of Planet Lighthouse to hold on until reinforcements arrive. Without the Stargate stations, we still have a lot of Stargate equipment in our warehouse. When the reinforcements arrive at the other Stargate, we can immediately set up a Stargate channel. Now that the reinforcements have yet to arrive, splitting up our troops to defend the Stargate stations will only cause us to lose even faster. Terekhov purposely made it sound like he had a plan, but everyone knew that it was not as easy as he made it sound. Setting up the Stargate equipment required quite a bit of time, and would the enemy just sit there and do nothing? Obviously not. When the reinforcements arrived at the channel, they would have to open the Stargate in front of the enemy, and a bloody battle would definitely break out. The problem was they might not even be able to hold on until the reinforcements arrived. At this moment, the image suddenly locked on 6 figures in front of the arcane church fleet. After seeing their appearances, Terekhov's face could not help but reveal a look of shock. Photon Sagman, Desolate Beast Mercer, Divine Technique Ninja, World Gate Taylor, Star Pupil Cisco, Sea Spirit Dylan, 6 Beyond Grade A Supers. That was twice as many as they had on their side. With the addition of ES God, Terekhov, Milizow's, and Bayone's hearts sank. The Arcane Church was too determined to kill, and they were not even afraid of the consequences of starting a war with the dynasty. Milizow's and Bayone started to regret. The two of them had volunteered to be Black Star's bodyguard for the Evolution Cube, but they did not expect that they would have to pay with their lives this time. They really should not have gotten involved in this mess. The two of them could not help but turn a look at Han Xiao, only to realize that Han Xiao had closed his eyes unknowingly. "What are you doing?" Before they could finish asking, intense mechanical force suddenly erupted from Han Xiao's body. Under the senses of the two of them, the energy level in Han Xiao's body started to fluctuate violently, and it was rapidly increasing. When he saw the soldiers of the Arcane Church descend from the sky, Han Xiao could not care about the others in the room anymore. He immediately opened the interface and poured all his experience into leveling up. At such a critical moment, he could no longer care about saving his experience during the penalty period. Every bit of strength counted. It had been 7 to 8 months since he became a Beyond Grade A Super. During this time, Han Xiao had harvested the players from the other star fields and guided the Flickering World main storyline mission. Coupled with the bonus from his political assets, he had accumulated a large amount of experience. Even if the cost of leveling up at this level was astronomical, even with the additional 40% experience lost during the penalty period, the experience he had accumulated was enough for him to rush from level 240 to level 260. Boiling energy surged out of his cells and surged through his body. A series of notifications popped up. Emperor Mechanic, leveled up to LV 35 max, plus 1000 energy, plus 5 STR, plus 5 DX, plus 8 END, plus 12 INT. You have received 10 free attribute points. You have received 1 potential point. You have reached the upper limit of your main class. You have triggered the class advancement mission, All Rivers in the Sea. All Rivers in the Sea visit 100 mechanic supers of grade A and above and exchange your mechanical skills with them. A powerful mechanic will never build a car behind closed doors and will know how to summarize their own skills through exchanges. You have reached level 260. You have triggered the promotion mission, the Never-Ending Challenger. After reaching the level 260 bottleneck, the class advancement mission and promotion mission appeared at the same time. None of the random rewards he had accumulated during this period had given him a mission completion card. Instead, he had obtained 2 blank character summon cards and 1 skill upgrade card. However, he only had 1 mission completion card, which was left over from before, so he could only skip one of the missions. Seeing these 2 missions, Han Xiaoxin was overjoyed. There was always a way. All Rivers in the Sea was a very time-consuming class advancement mission. In the entire universe, there were definitely 100 Calamity Grade mechanics, but they were all in different regions. This mission was obviously the most time-consuming, and he had to earn the favorability of 100 targets so that they would be willing to communicate with him. Although it was cumbersome, the only benefit for the players was that it was not difficult at all. In comparison, this promotion mission was much more difficult for the ordinary players. Challenging a beyond grade A super head-on and lasting 30 seconds was a requirement that would only appear in the later stages of the promotion mission. 30 seconds was not impossible, but the difficult part was the requirement of surviving. There were two common ways for the players to complete this mission. The first was to be indifferent to life and death and leave it up to fate. The second method was much more reliable, which was to join a faction with a beyond grade A super and earn the favorability of the beyond grade A super in exchange for a chance to spar. Since it was a spar, even if the beyond grade A super lost, they would not kill. Although it would take a lot of time, the second method had a higher success rate. After all, the interface would not cause all the players to be stuck on the promotion mission. However, to Han Xiao, this mission was not difficult at all. Not to mention one beyond grade A, he already had 6 beyond grade A supers on his head. Including ES God, he had the same number of eyes as Cisco. Without hesitation, Han Xiao directly used the mission completion card on All Rivers in the Sea. In comparison, only the promotion mission could be completed in an extremely short amount of time. However, the only problem was that the promotion mission could only be completed after he left the battle. If he was entangled by the enemy, it would not be so easy to leave the battle. Han Xiao suddenly turned around and said, "Bayoni, fight with me immediately." Everyone's face was filled with question marks. Is there something wrong with your brain in front of the enemy? Are you going to join the Arcane Church and become a traitor in order to survive? Rumble. Right at this moment, the room suddenly shook, and a series of explosions sounded from the sky. The Arcane Church in outer space launched their attack. While fighting with the defense fleet, they shot out psionic bombs to bombard the surface of Planet Lighthouse. Explosions continuously exploded on the protective shield of the planet-level base, causing the ground to tremble. Indeed, the enemy even sent a fleet toward the Stargate station not far away with the intention of snatching it, proving Tarakov's foresight. With millions of enemy battleships attacking, the Dynasty fleet, the Black Star Corps fleet, the Dragoblood Country fleet, and the Flame Demon fleet all launched their own counterattacks. Cannon fire was exchanged, and the sky of Planet Lighthouse was dyed into a colorful canvas. The colors of countless energy beams were like the aurora, beautiful and deadly. On the other side, the enemy's strongest beyond grade, Photon Sagman, brought Divine Spell Ninja and engaged in a fierce battle with Milizhao's main body in outer space. Milizhao's knew teleportation spells and tried many times. However, Divine Spell Ninja was also a beyond grade A mage and interrupted his teleportation spells time and time again. The other 4 beyond grade as, including Cisco, charged into the defense line of the Dynasty fleet and headed straight for the surface. Their goal was obviously to flatten the base on Planet Lighthouse and force Han Xiao and Bayoni out. All surface troops attack and defend against the enemy's attack. Tarakov ordered decisively. Black Star, Bayoni, we can only rely on you guys to deal with those 4 beyond grade as. We have no other choice. Although he knew that Black Star was the enemy's target, such a situation did not allow a beyond grade A to avoid battle. Only by resisting would they have a chance of survival. I understand. Han Zhao's expression was solemn. At this critical moment, there was no time to waste on sparring with Bayoni. He could only complete the promotion mission on the enemy. Xiao. The next moment, 2 figures flew out of the base together like 2 streams of light, one black and one red, heading straight for the 4 beyond grade as of the Arcane Church. On the way, Han Xiao opened the secondary dimensional army box and released all his mechanical troops. The black tide carried his body all the way into the sky. Very soon, the 2 sides met in the sky, and it was 2 against 4. A strong gust of wind blew on the bodies of the 6 of them. The 6 of them seemed to have been nailed to the sky, and their figures did not move at all. The terrifying energy fluctuations of the 4 of them were like an ocean, and Bayoni's heart was filled with pressure. He knew that he did not have a physique as outstanding as Han Zhao's, and his chances of dying were probably higher than Black Star's. The 2 sides stared at each other in silence for a few seconds before Cisco spoke coldly. His tone was filled with firm, killing intent. I reminded you before, when you took the evolution cube. Did you think that this day would come? Han Xiao ignored him. He did not have the time to chat with him before the battle. He calmed down and observed the 4 strong enemies. They were pugilists, mages, psychics, and espers. For beyond great ass, even with my recovery speed, I won't be able to hold them off. Looks like I'll have to use up all of Aurora's character summon cards and potions this time. I hope that guy can come quickly to share the pressure. Han Xiao clenched his teeth and threw all the free attribute points he obtained from leveling up into endurance. With the high endurance conversion rate, his health increased by another 200,000 or so. The difference in strength was too great. He could only try to increase his tankiness as much as possible. The next moment, the 6 of them moved at the same time. The battle suddenly erupted. On the other side, God was still leading his fleet to break through the security sector. God asked Hakazan to ask when the Arcane Church would attack, but the reply he received shocked him. The Arcane Church received the help of the Radiant Federation and directly teleported into the hinterland of Planet Lighthouse. They even sent out 6 beyond grade as. God's expression changed slightly. He thought about it and decisively gave the order. Everyone, listen up. Increase your speed immediately. The Arcane Church actually sent out 6 beyond grade as. God did not know how long Planet Lighthouse could last under such a terrifying attack. If the Arcane Church had already taken back the Evolution Cube before he arrived, he did not think that the Arcane Church would fulfill their agreement and let him borrow the Evolution Cube. Furthermore, he would not be able to snatch it from the hands of 6 beyond grade as. Thus, God was a little anxious and planned to quickly join the battle to get a share of the loot. Chapter 841. In the outer space of Planet Lighthouse, a giant dragon soared in the battlefield like a main ship. Its slender body was shrouded in colorful magic circles, blocking all the cannons and leaving behind a series of explosions. Milizaus flapped his wings, his huge body rampaging. The magic energy in his body boiled, and he wantonly cast endless offensive spells, setting off a magic wave on the battlefield. Beside Milizaus were 2 tiny figures. Light Beam. Sagman was surging with golden light energy, constantly shattering Milizaus' protective spells. The other divine spell, Ninja, was casting spells to fight Milizaus. The 2 of them kept him busy. Due to his huge size, Milizaus' dodging ability was very poor, and he was practically a target. However, there were pros and cons. His tankiness could almost look down on all mages, so his energy was extremely dense, and the power of his spells was also increased. Although Sagman and Ninja could keep him busy, they were basically on par for the time being. The 3 beyond grade as fought fiercely on the battlefield, and the surrounding fleets were constantly destroyed by the shockwaves. 2 troublesome fellows. Milizaus' dragon eyes were filled with solemnity. Sagman was the strongest of the 6, and with the other beyond grade A mage, it was very difficult to deal with them. Although he could fight the 2 of them at the same time, he could not free himself to help Blackstar. The goal of these 2 fellows is to keep me busy, but I can also keep the other 2 busy. However, there are still 4 people on Blackstar's side. Even if I go over to help, those 2 will follow, and it's just as dangerous. Sigh, there's no other way. I hope Blackstar and Bayoni can hold on. I can't help. Milizaus fell helpless. Even if he was extremely strong and was one of the 3 pillars of the dynasty, the 2 beyond grade, as of the enemy, were not to be underestimated. He had to focus on dealing with them and could not free himself. If he hadn't gotten involved in this mess in the beginning, he wouldn't have gotten involved in this crisis. The more Milizaus thought about it, the angrier he got, and the more he felt, the angrier he got. He raised his head and let out a mouthful of destructive dark golden dragon breath, which clashed with Sagman's light energy shockwave and exploded into dazzling fireworks. Our 4 companions are fighting against 2 of you. Blackstar won't be able to hold on for long. The battle over there will be over soon. Your resistance now is meaningless. Why don't you give up and join the Arcane Church? This is your only way out. You're not a direct descendant of the Empire, so there's no need to die for them. At this moment, Ninja used a spell to send a voice transmission to Milizos. His cold words sounded in Milizos' mind. What answered him was an even more powerful dragon breath. "Oomph, you really won't compromise." Ninja's eyes turned cold as he casually released a huge magic shield to block the dragon's breath. Sagman said calmly, "Then let's act according to the plan. He thinks that we are only going to stall him and create an opportunity to use the 10,000 deity scepter." Okay. At this moment, Milizos did not know that not only Black Star, but he was also one of the arcane church's targets. In the thin air of Planet Lighthouse, Han Xiao and Baoni also started fighting with Cisco's group of 4. The moment the battle began, Han Xiao activated Reynolds' character summon card without hesitation. The mechanical force in his body seemed to have taken an aphrodisiac and swelled up. Perfect mechanical sense. This character summon card could only be used 3 times. He had already used it twice before, so this would be the last time. The 4 times increase in machinery affinity instantly raised the standard of his mechanical force to a whole new level. The densely packed mech legion around them immediately opened fire, and their attack power soared under the effect of mechanical force. The energy cannons formed a barrage that locked down the sky. The 4 of them instantly moved. A blue light flashed in Dylan's eyes, and a huge amount of seawater gushed out from his body, forming water dragons that grew larger and larger. They circled around the 4 of them and formed a barrier. Under his control, the water curtain became extremely compressed, and it seemed to have become a solid shield. Cisco did not stay idle either. He covered the water curtain with his psychic energy and formed multiple shields. Boom! Boom! Wave after wave of attacks landed on the water curtain and the psychic shield. The shields kept shattering, but they were constantly replenished by Psyker and Dylan, blocking most of the attacks. Working together, it was equivalent to the mechanical army needing to break through the defenses of 2 beyond grade as. The 4 of them would not just stand there and wait to be attacked. They all moved at high speed. Desolate Beast Mercer was a grayish-black humanoid more than 7 meters tall. He looked like an upright beast with a thick mane growing from the top of his head to the bottom of his tail. His muscles were bulging, and he wore a simple special armor. He was wrapped in a powerful green, pugilist flame and charged toward them like a meteor. Han Xiao had already activated his mechanical suit and covered his entire body. He had fought with Heber before, so he was very experienced in dealing with this. He constantly changed his position and controlled his mechanical army to intercept Mercer while maintaining a distance from him. Facing 4 strong enemies, Baoni did not dare slack off. He constantly activated his Esper ability, and his main target was Dylan. He ignited a large amount of seawater and turned it into a sea of flames. The water curtain turned into clouds of white steam when it clashed with the sea of flames. At this time, both Han Xiao and Baoni felt a strange fluctuation in space. They both looked up and saw Sector Gate, Taylor holding his staff. His lips were moving as if he was chanting a spell. A huge magic formation appeared in the sky behind him, and the glowing patterns were as complicated as vines. Boom! The sound of the door of a palace being pushed open sounded in their ears. The next moment, the magic formation behind Taylor split open from the middle and turned into a huge circular door of light. Inside the door of light was a pitch-black world. In the darkness, there were countless red light spots that looked like fireflies. They looked like the eyes of some kind of creature. This is a summoning circle. Han Zhao's eyes narrowed. Rua. In the next second, countless strange bright red creatures roared as they surged out of the door of light. They were like a blood-red flood, and the scene was like a flood water. These creatures looked like mutated giant bats. They had sharp claws and bone spikes, horns on their heads, and 2 pairs of blood-red eyes on their faces that could shoot red lasers. Their appearance seemed to be related to demons. After these summoned creatures appeared, they immediately found the mechanical army, and the 2 sides started fighting in midair. Flesh and blood collided with machinery. Blood and engine oil flowed out. Pieces of flesh and broken parts fell like rain. Taylor was a mage, and he was best at summoning spells. This was where his nickname, Sector Gate, came from. Summoning mages are at a disadvantage for me. Han Xiao clenched his teeth. Army-style mechanics and summoning mages were known as the two biggest hooligans, and they both used human wave tactics. The difference between the two was that mechanics burned money and could build machines in advance, while summoning mages could only slowly summon their minions in battle, burning mana. Now that Han Zhao's mechanical army had reached the scale of 10 million, it would take a very long time for Taylor to summon minions of the same scale. At this time, the first batch of summoned creatures could not cause much damage to the mechanical army. However, if Taylor was not stopped from continuing to cast spells, more and more of his summoned creatures would be able to fight against the mech army sooner or later, greatly reducing the advantage of Han Zhao's human wave tactic. If it was a one-on-one battle, Han Xiao had more than 10 ways to interrupt the other party summoning. However, this was a group battle, and it was 2 against 4. He was pinned down by the enemy, and the difficulty of stopping Taylor from casting spells had increased exponentially. The pugilist's sudden attack gives me pressure, and the psychic and control Esper are attacking while controlling the field, so the summoner has no pressure. What good combo! Han Xiaoxin had a heavy headache. The enemy had clearly come prepared. Baoni also understood this point. The flames in his eyes burned brightly, and he also targeted his summoned creatures with his Esper ability. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. His AoE ability was also outstanding, and his summoned creatures were ignited without any resistance, turning into falling meteors. "I'll deal with him," Dylan said. He controlled the seawater to surge toward Baoni, and water tentacles reached out from the surging ocean to push away the mechanical army that was blocking his way. He stepped on the waves, bounced his legs, and shot towards Baoni like a cannonball, creating a whirlwind of fine splashes in the air. The flames on Baoni's body burned brightly, and his blood that once belonged to the pyro demon race boiled. He opened his mouth and spat out red flames, instantly evaporating a large amount of seawater and clashing with the seawater that Dylan spat out in midair. Fire and water, red and blue, neither side was willing to be outdone. Under the support of the powerful energy of both sides, they reached a stalemate and released a large amount of water vapor. White mist quickly spread out, and vision was obstructed. However, this did not affect the Beyond Great Ass. Han Xiao did not have the time to care about anything else. The enemy only had one person to pin down Baoni, while Cisco, Mercer, and Taylor surrounded him. Facing the pressure of 3 Beyond Grade, as at the same time, the damage to his mechanical army continued to rise. Fortunately, he had the bonus of perfect mechanical sense, or he would have suffered even faster losses. Han Xiao himself was in a very sorry state, constantly dodging the attacks of psychic, magic, and pugilist energy waves. He did not even have time to catch his breath. With his current strength, facing 3 Beyond Grade, as at the same time was beyond his ability. Beyond Grade, as were all experts with rich combat experience, and their teamwork was very good. The combat strength they could unleash was not as simple as just adding together. 90% of the time, he was dodging and defending very passive. While Cisco and the other 2 chased after Han Xiao, they also wantonly attacked the mechanical army. They had read the information and knew that Han Xiao had the title of Undying Black Star. Although they believed that Black Star would lose the title of Undying if they worked together, only by getting rid of the mechanical army would they have a safe environment to attack. After all, the Mech Legion was indeed very threatening. With the bonus of perfect mechanical sense and the true damage of legendary battle technique, if they were careless, they could be heavily injured by Black Star at any time. Therefore, Cisco and the other 2 focused on taking care of Han Zhao's mechanical army. The mechanical soldiers were destroyed by the attacks of the Beyond Grade as one after another, but they were pulled back by Han Zhao's waste modification. It was like a tug of war. "If this continues, it'll be bad," Han Xiao complained while dodging the attacks. Although he could repair the Mech Legion, there was a limit to the number of times he could repair it. There were 4 beyond grade, as on the other side, his mechanical army would definitely not be able to outlast them. If all his mechanical army was destroyed, he would become a toothless tiger. No matter how tanky he was, he would not be able to fight back. Planet Lighthouse and the Arcane Church's fleet started an all-out war. The sky and the ground were both filled with battlefields. Milizau's armed dragon guards had already joined the battle. The heavily armored giant dragons fought with the battleships, tearing apart each other's armor and dragon scales. Hela, Hardaway, Fu Ding, and the rest of the Black Star Corps Black Star Guards also joined the battle outside the atmosphere, helping the Dynasty's fleet fight against the Arcane Church's battleships. The Calamity Grade officers shuttled through the battleship formation one after another, using their abilities to destroy the enemy's battleships. Although they wanted to help Han Xiao, they knew their limits. The battle between 6 beyond grade, as was not something they could interfere with. They would only be cannon fodder if they went. The only thing they could do was fight alongside the Dynasty's fleet. The Black Star Guards were all elite Calamity grades, so they could shine on the battlefield. Other than sending out beyond grade, as the Arcane Church also sent out a group of Calamity grades. However, their numbers were not as great as the Dynasty's. The Calamity grades of both sides quickly found each other and started fighting. Hadavi endured a sea of attacks and slashed at the Calamity grade supers that he caught. Fu Ding controlled his psychic power and moved gracefully between the crisscrossing energy beams. His psychic power accurately hit his target time and time again. Hela was even more powerful. In such a huge battlefield, she was constantly provided with souls, increasing her strength rapidly. Without holding back at all, the dark red death energy gushed out like a tsunami. It was completely overwhelming, and it did not take long for Hela to kill her opponent and absorb his soul. She took the opportunity to look at the battlefield in the sky above Planet Lighthouse. The 6 of them, including Han Xiao, were fighting there. The shockwaves they released were too terrifying, and it had already become a forbidden zone. Don't die. Hela bit her lips and decisively turned around to look for the next enemy. The battlefield in the sky was constantly moving, and the summoned creatures grew larger and larger. On the contrary, the number of mechanical soldiers was decreasing. The 2 of them became more and more passive. Han Xiao also received quite a number of attacks, but his recovery ability was strong, so he was not affected much. However, Baoni was different. He did not have a very strong physique, and he had almost no means of defending against Cisco's psychic attacks. He could only barely hold on, and the situation was getting worse and worse. This guy can't hold on much longer. Looking at Baoni, who was covered in wounds, Han Xiao's heart sank. This teammate was his only support at the moment. If he was killed, he would have to face 4 beyond grade as alone. By then, he might not even have a chance to deal with them. At this time, Cisco's group of 4 exchanged glances and suddenly launched an even more intense attack on Han Xiao. Xiao, a white jade bee statue that was a few hundred meters tall, spat out a gray beam of light toward Han Xiao. It was an elite summoned creature under Taylor's command. Han Xiao hurriedly turned around and dodged. The fact that he had the Void bloodline had long been recorded in his information. His Void hyperdrive was targeted by the enemy. As a beyond grade aim mage, Taylor was naturally proficient in controlling multidimensional energy. This was the basic skill of a summoner to communicate with their summoned creatures. As long as Han Xiao entered the Void hyperdrive, he would be forced out by the enemy's spells. He would not be able to maintain the Void hyperdrive state for long, so he would not be able to escape. In fact, when the Arcane Church fleet appeared, the Void hyperdrive could no longer help Han Xiao escape. Even if he abandoned everyone and escaped by himself, the hyperdrive speed of the Arcane Church spaceship would not be slower than him. They would catch up to him very quickly, and he would be alone. After dodging the beam, the psychic power and water dragon swept toward him. Han Xiao opened his psionic shield and dodged while defending. At this time, a figure appeared in front of him as if teleporting. It was Mercer, and his fist smashed down. Is this the teleportation technique Heber used before? Han Xiao was shocked and hurriedly made a defensive stance. However, the next moment, the fist that landed was like an illusion passing through Han Xiao's body. It did not feel real at all, proving that the person in front of him was an illusion. *T. Han Xiao immediately reacted. His expression changed, and he hurriedly looked toward Bayone's direction. As expected, Taylor used a spell, and the real Mercer turned around and approached Bayone while using his aura concealment spell. Under Bayone's panicked expression, shadows of his fists filled the sky. Dong dong dong. Bayone was hit repeatedly, and his injuries quickly worsened. The other three immediately changed their target and attacked Bayone at the same time as if they had planned this beforehand. If he was hit by the combined attacks of 4 beyond grade as, with Bayone's current injuries, he would most likely enter a state of near death. Whoosh! At this critical moment, Han Xiao could not care less. He used his restricted Void Hyperdrive and appeared right in front of Bayone in a hurry. This distance was still doable. Then, Han Xiao directly pushed Bayone behind him and faced the combined attacks of the 4 beyond grade as. Boom! His mechanical suit shattered, and a large chunk of his health instantly disappeared. Han Xiao's vision blurred, and his entire body was in intense pain. He was sent flying like a baseball, spinning in the air. The mechanical army hurriedly blocked the pursuit of Cisco's group of 4 without caring about the casualties. Only then did he have time to stabilize his body. Enduring the intense pain from his wounds, he looked at his plummeting health. This damage is too terrifying. If I hadn't stopped it in time, Bayone would have died. Han Xiaoxin bitterly smiled. This time, he had really become a meat shield for Bayone. Bayone hurriedly retreated to Han Xiao's side, supported his body, and said with a hoarse voice, "Are you okay?" "I'm okay. I won't die so easily. Don't forget what my nickname is." Han Xiao shook off his hand, took a deep breath, and activated his cell regeneration ability, allowing his terrifying injuries to gradually recover. "Thank you. If not for you, I would have died." Bayone's tone was filled with gratitude, but then became sorrowful. "No, we're still going to die. It's just a matter of time. Aren't you talking nonsense? Anyone will die." Han Xiao could not help but glance at him. Bayone choked and had a helpless expression. "You're still in a mood to joke at a time like this?" However, Han Xiao then shook his head and said with a firm tone, "However, today is not the day of our death." Just as the 4 beyond grade as, including Cisco, were planning to follow up with another attack, Taylor suddenly paused and said with uncertainty, Wait. I sense a strange magical fluctuation approaching through the secondary dimension. So powerful." At this time, the space not far away suddenly twisted, and an expanding teleportation gate appeared. At this time, the Dynasty's anti-wormhole device had already been shut down. Taylor wanted to use space magic to counter this teleportation gate that suddenly appeared, but he realized that the magic wave of this teleportation gate was far stronger than any mage he had ever seen. Taylor was shocked. With his ability, he was unable to stop the teleportation gate from forming. The next moment, an enormous castle wrapped in dense magic light jumped out of the teleportation gate. "Why is he here?" Cisco's eyes widened. As a beyond grade A in the Shattered Star Ring, he was all too familiar with this thing. It was the Palace of Hidden Spells. Austin floated at the top of the castle of the Palace of Hidden Spells. Behind him were countless red-robed, forbidden sorcerers, all looking at them. He adjusted his loose robe, and an inexplicable smile appeared on his face. I'm not late, am I?" It's a little late today, and this chapter has quite a lot of words, so it took me a while to write. Chapter 842. The 4 of them stared at the Palace of Hidden Spells not far away in shock. Austin's arrival shocked them. Cisco was even more shocked. Hasn't this old man always been neutral? Why is he here? Looks like he's here to help Black Star. Austin, you've joined the Red Empire? Cisco was shocked and sent a telepathic message. Nope. Austin smiled. Then why are you here? This has nothing to do with you. Maintain your neutrality and don't come looking for trouble. Cisco's tone was heavy. Sorry, I have an agreement with Black Star. This has nothing to do with the Red Empire. This is a personal request. Austin chuckled. Back at the Tyrant's party, in order to borrow the evolution cube, he had agreed to many of Han Zhao's conditions. One of the conditions was to help Han Zhao do something as long as it was within his capabilities and did not go against his principles. This was the reason why he was here. When he realized that the Arcane Church was up to something, for safety's sake, Han Zhao had already secretly asked Austin for external help. In order to fulfill his promise, Austin steered the Palace of Hidden Spells and secretly came to the flickering world through continuous long-distance teleportation, hiding in the desolate universe belt. He did not use the Red Empire's Stargate and claimed that he was going to look for magic materials in other secondary dimensions. Because it was too common for beyond grade A mages to look for materials in secondary dimensions, and because he was a neutral faction, the outside world directly ignored the movements of the Palace of Hidden Spells, including the Arcane Church. No one would have thought that a neutral mage like Austin would personally sneak into the flickering world without the dynasty's permission. As a gold item, a universal treasure, the cost of building the Palace of Hidden Spells was astronomical. It only took him 10 days to sneak from the Shattered Star Ring to the desolate universe belt of the flickering world, which was many times faster than the high-velocity spaceships of the stowaways. He found a place to wait for orders and activated the concealment formation of the Palace of Hidden Spells to hide himself. Normal observation equipment would not be able to detect the concealment ability of a universal treasure-level mage tower so easily. Of course, Austin did not know that there were so many enemies in the beginning. He originally thought that the Arcane Church would not actually make a move and that he only needed to stay here for a while to easily complete the agreement. Even if he was discovered by the Empire, with Black Star as his guarantor, the Empire would not do anything to him. But he didn't expect the Arcane Church to make such a big scene. After hesitating for a while, he finally decided not to just stand by and watch. He secretly pinched his nose and accepted his bad luck. Then, he led the Palace of Hidden Spells to provide support. As a neutral party, he knew that this was not in line with the principle of seeking benefits and avoiding harm. But since he had already agreed to Black Star's request, Austin did not go back on his word. He still had this bit of credibility. Austin looked calm and collected, but in reality, no one knew that although he was smiling on the surface, he was cursing in his heart. This is a huge loss. Han Zhao heaved a sigh of relief, and a smile appeared on his face. Old man, you're finally here. With you here, we can share some of the pressure. Austin glanced at him and snorted. I must be crazy to participate in this chaotic battle. Using your evolution cube is a huge loss for me. As soon as he said that, Baoni immediately felt that he had met a confidant. The way he saw it, Milizaus, who was fighting outside the atmosphere, probably also felt the same way. He could not help but turn around to look at Han Zhao, who was gradually recovering. Baoni, who was covered in wounds, had a bitter look in his eyes. My heart is bitter, but I won't say it. Han Zhao noticed his gaze, and his mouth twitched. He bent his fingers, and a sharp needle popped out from his fingertips, indicating for Baoni to lower his defenses and let him inject him. What are you doing? Healing you. Sigh. The vitality of a beyond grade A is huge. What can your little healing agent do? Oh, what did you inject me with? Before he finished speaking, Han Zhao injected Baoni with the life potion made by Aurora. Baoni originally had a bitter look on his face, not thinking that the treatment would be useful. However, after the injection, his expression changed and he was filled with shock. He could feel a surge of life energy being injected into his body, and all the cells in his body were cheering. It was as though he had eaten a huge tonic, and his recovery speed increased by many times. Although he did not recover to his peak state, he was no longer heavily injured. What kind of potion is this? It's so effective on a beyond grade A. Baoni was shocked. You still have the time to be curious? Deal with the situation in front of you first. Han Xiao put away the needle. Although Cisco's group of 4 had stopped attacking, the surrounding mechanical army was still fighting with the summoned creatures. As long as the mechanical army was fighting, it meant that Han Xiao was in combat. Furthermore, the time limit for him to leave combat was 5 minutes, which was far from enough. Although the enemies were shocked, they would not be stunned for so long. Seeing that Austin was determined to interfere, they put away their shock and accepted reality. They immediately resumed their attacks and targeted Austin as their target. Austin activated the Palace of Hidden Spells with all his might, activating all the formations and absorbing the wandering dark energy. With a hum, the massive palace shone with a dazzling magical radiance. The Palace of Hidden Spells activated one after another, spewing out beams of mana impact and engaging the group in a fierce battle. On the other side, Mercer was very close to Han Xiao and Baoni to begin with. In a flash, he appeared in front of Han Xiao and punched at Han Xiao's head. At such a close distance, he had just used Void Hyperdrive, and there was still Baoni behind him. Han Xiao decisively activated Heber's character summon card, and his strength increased by 4,000 points. A surge of energy exploded within his body, pouring into his fist. Suddenly, he punched out, producing an explosive sound as he brazenly clashed head-on with his opponent. Bang! The two fists, one large and one small, collided, creating a shockwave in the air. The surrounding water vapor was blown away, forming a clear area. Mercer felt a rebounding force that was no weaker than his own coming from his fist, and his body flew out uncontrollably. He hurriedly stabilized himself and realized that Han Xiao was also sent flying. Both of them were sent flying by each other. Their strength was actually on par. How do you have so much strength? Mercer's beastly face was filled with shock. His strongest attribute was strength, but a mechanic's punch was actually on par with a pugilist's? What the hell? Are you even worthy of being a mechanic? Shaking his arm, Han Xiao bared his teeth. The Heber's character summon card allowed him to not be crushed by the opponent's strength, but the pugilist's flames had a powerful close-range destructive power, which tore apart many of the cells in his arm. With the help of the rebounding force, Han Xiao quickly retreated with Baoni and hid in the defense line of the mechanical army. At the same time, he quickly analyzed the situation. Milizhao's is holding back 2 people, and the situation on my side is now 3 against 4. Although the enemy still has 1 more person, Austin has the buff from the Palace of Hidden Spells, so he can share more of the pressure. I'm no longer at an absolute disadvantage and can barely hold on, but the enemy still has powerful reinforcements. If ES God arrives, the balance will be broken again. Austin's Palace of Hidden Spells can teleport me away, and it seems like 1 mage won't be able to stop it. However, there are 2 mages on the other side, and they definitely have a way to counter the teleportation of the Palace of Hidden Spells. If we want to run, we can only let the Palace of Hidden Spells take Baoni and me away. If we force Milizhao's onto the Palace of Hidden Spells, the 2 mages will meet up, and we won't be able to escape. Oh, there's another problem. The teleportation of the Palace of Hidden Spells needs time to be channeled, and that mage won't just watch me, the key target, escape. He'll definitely abandon Milizhao's and come to stop us. Milizhao's will definitely not stay behind to die after seeing us abandon him. He definitely won't sacrifice himself to hold back Ninja. If we're heartless, he'll be heartless too. When Ninja turns around to deal with us, Milizhao's will most likely use teleportation to escape. At that time, the Palace of Hidden Spells will still be left behind, but we'll lose our strongest combatant, Milizhao's. Han Xiao's expression was grave. Thinking about it this way, using the Palace of Hidden Spells to escape would only mean abandoning Milizhao's. Furthermore, the success rate was extremely low. If they failed and hurt Milizhao's feelings, he would most likely take the opportunity to escape. Then, they would have 1 less combatant on their side, making the situation even worse. If they really escaped, the dynasty's fleet would definitely be wiped out. Be it the armed dragon guards, his black star guards, or even Hela, Aurora, and Fu Ding, none of them would be able to survive. It would be difficult for the Palace of Hidden Spells to teleport reinforcements. Even the multidimensional sky-opening transportation device had a limit to the teleportation distance, and the Palace of Hidden Spells was no exception. Heber's 3 reinforcements were located in different regions of different star clusters and were currently rushing to the entrance of Planet Lighthouse through the Stargate network. They had exceeded the teleportation range of the Palace of Hidden Spells, and no matter how fast they would not be faster than the Stargate. Han Shao clenched his teeth and said, "Tarakov is right. We don't have much of a choice. We can only hold on until the reinforcements arrive at the other end of the Stargate." The stronger they were, the greater their chances. Their promotion mission was only one step away from completion, so they had to find an opportunity to do so. Waiting for the enemy to stop was obviously not realistic. Perhaps they could try another method. After Austin joined the team, the battle resumed, and the intensity was raised to a whole new level. No one below beyond grade A could interfere. The Palace of Hidden Spells was Austin's combat equipment, and it had extremely high bonuses to his magic. It was like a magic cannon that fired non-stop, displaying extraordinary combat strength. Although it was 3 against 4, the originally one-sided situation was instantly broken, and no one could do anything to the other in the short term. Han Zhao's pressure was shared, and, correspondingly, the threat that the mechanical army gave Cisco's group of 4 increased. The enemy had no choice but to be more cautious and slow down their attacks. Taylor could no longer summon creatures without any pressure, and his summoning was interrupted time and time again. The 4 of them purposely separated the Palace of Hidden Spells from Han Shao and Han Shao, discussing their strategy as they fought. With the help of the Palace of Hidden Spells, Austin's combat strength has been raised to a whole new level. "He's very difficult to deal with," Cisco said solemnly. "Fisk, if I had brought my mage tower, I might not have been afraid of him." Taylor was a little annoyed that his summoning was interrupted again. Basically, every Beyond Grade A mage had a mage tower, but not everyone could create a universal treasure like the Palace of Hidden Spells. Taylor and Ninja did not bring their own mage towers for this trip. Firstly, it was much more cumbersome. After they were teleported over by the Radiant Federation, they had to leave on their own. In a situation where they would definitely be chased by the Dynasty fleet, bringing a cumbersome mage tower would affect their mobility. Secondly, they felt that there would not be any accidents, so there was no need to bring it. Thirdly, it was to maintain the secrecy of this operation and reduce the chances of being discovered in advance. After all, they were not neutral parties like Austin. "Be careful. Black Star might escape with the help of the Palace of Hidden Spells," Dylan reminded. "If he has such intentions, I will immediately inform Ninja to come down and meet up with him. Although I can't stop the teleportation of the Palace of Hidden Spells alone, the 2 of us should be able to interrupt it," Taylor said. "Then Milizaus might take the opportunity to escape. Then let Sagman and Ninja use the 10,000 deity scepter quickly, or force Milizaus to come over. If we really have to choose between the 2, we can ignore Milizaus. Black Star is our main target." Cisco interjected. Mercer did not participate in the group chat the entire time and focused on chasing after Han Shao. He did not believe that he would lose and wanted to test the strength of Han Zhao's fist. When the Palace of Hidden Spells appeared, the 3 people fighting outside the atmosphere also noticed this phenomenon. With Han Zhao's reinforcements appearing, Milizaus was overjoyed and spat out even more dragon breaths. On the other hand, Sagman and Ninja both became serious. Cisco said that the one who came is Austin from the Shattered Star Ring. He's here to help Black Star. With another Beyond Grade A on the enemy's side, our advantage will be reduced. Sagman frowned and casually destroyed a dragon breath. 4 against 6. It seems like we might not be able to end the battle before ES God arrives. Ninja shook his head. The Arcane Church's instructions were to complete the mission as soon as possible and not let ES God join in. However, it seemed that it would not be so easy. Han Zhao's backup plan was beyond their expectations. "Don't be so hasty to come to a conclusion." Sagman abruptly released a surging light screen that resembled a raging tide. The tsunami-like light energy shattered the dragon breath that Milizao spat out, and the dazzling light filled the pitch-black space battlefield. In the surrounding battleships, countless crew members squinted their eyes at the sight of this dazzling sea of light, and their vision was filled with white. Milizao's vision and senses were affected to a certain extent, and he suddenly felt a strong sense of danger. This came from the intuition of a beyond grade A. Without any hesitation, he cast defensive spells again and again. Colorful magic shields and barriers covered his body layer by layer, like a turtle shell. Milizao's then flapped his dragon wings and left the range of the light energy wave. He hurriedly looked over and saw that a strange black rod had appeared in front of Ninja. With Milizao's amazing vision, he could clearly see that this black rod was only slightly more than a meter long. There were thousands of tiny engravings on it. This is the 10,000 deity scepter. Alarm bells rang in Milizao's mind. With his vast knowledge, there was no way he would not recognize this famous universal treasure of the Arcane Church. The Arcane Church was an expert in the study of souls, beliefs, spirits, and illusions. They had an incredible, unique technology, which was to turn fake gods into real existences, creating gods artificially and allowing them to exist in a different form. The 10,000 deity scepter was a universal treasure that the Arcane Church had created coincidentally based on this technology. It could not be replicated and was one of the mediums to borrow the power of these artificial gods. To put it simply, the gods of the Arcane Church were like missiles and ammunition, and the 10,000 deity scepter was a special launching tool. If the Radiant Federation's multidimensional sky opening transportation device was a strategic universal treasure, then the 10,000 deity scepter was a single-target killing weapon. Its power was not shocking, but to creatures with souls, the 10,000 deity scepter was incredibly lethal. Furthermore, the stronger the user, the more lethal the weapon would be. During the Exploration Era War, 3 powerful primordial ones had even died under this weapon. The 10,000 deity scepter required gods to be used as ammunition, and the user would suffer a certain amount of backlash. The same person could not use it repeatedly within a short period of time. Every time it was used, the 10,000 deity scepter would be damaged to varying degrees, making it extremely difficult to repair. Because of these 3 reasons, the Arcane Church rarely used this universal treasure. Most of the time, it was used as a strategic deterrent. Milizao's never thought that he would be able to see this infamous weapon with his own eyes while he was still alive. What kind of King bad luck is this? Did Blackstar, you jinx, infect me with your bad luck? Did I eat the rice of the Arcane Church? Do you have to be so cruel? Just as he was about to explode, Ninja flicked his finger and the 10,000 deity scepter in front of him moved horizontally. The tip of the scepter was aimed at Milizao's and it was activated. Ninja channeled a large amount of energy into the black scepter, and all the carvings on it lit up. Countless tiny carvings of gods seemed to come alive, projecting tens of thousands of translucent phantoms. They merged into an illusionary energy pillar and shot toward Milizao's. If it were anyone else, they might be able to dodge this attack, but Milizao's enormous body could not do so. He could only cast all kinds of high-level defensive spells like crazy. However, in front of the energy pillar shot out by the 10,000 deity scepter, these magic shields that could block the psionic cannons were instantly penetrated as if they did not exist. Milizao's could only watch as the energy pillar pierced through countless magic shields without any resistance, pierced through the thick dragon scales on his chest, and entered his body without a trace of smoke. Blackstar F*CKU. Before he could finish cursing, the giant dragon's body shook violently in the next second. He instantly lost control of his body like a bird shot down by an arrow. The giant dragon's body was captured by the gravitational force of Planet Lighthouse. It spun and fell toward the planet like a meteorite falling from the sky. Crack! At the same time, a A few deep cracks appeared on the surface of the 10,000 deity scepter. Ugh! Ninja groaned as he was hit by the backlash. Sagman shot out a tentacle of light and grabbed the 10,000 deity scepter. He knew that this attack was not enough to kill Milizao's, who was extremely tanky. Ninja could no longer use this weapon, so it was his turn to use it. Chapter 843. A few minutes earlier, in the high-altitude battlefield of Planet Lighthouse, the seven beyond grayed as were embroiled in a chaotic battle. Fire and water collided, psychic energy and magic entangled, machinery and flesh clashed, and psionic energy beams intersected, leaving behind countless burning and twisted energy trails in the air. It was 3 against 4, and the enemy's attacks had no choice but to slow down. The pressure on Han Xiao was greatly reduced, and with his powerful recovery speed, he gradually stabilized his footing and started to deal with the enemy. Han Zhao's mechanical army, Austin's palace of hidden spells, Taylor's summoned creatures, Cisco's psychic energy, Dylan's water control, Bayone's ignite. The battlefield was filled with AoE damage everywhere. Among them, the strongest AoE damage was the Mech Legion, with over 10 million of them. The psionic cannons covered almost every inch of the sky, and perfect mechanical sense greatly increased the combat strength of the army. Coupled with the true damage from legendary battle technique, Cisco's group of 4 did not dare lower their guard and maintain their defenses at all times. Even the Beyond Grade, as would not be able to escape unscathed in such an environment, and the mechanical army and summoned creatures that used the human wave tactics suffered even more damage. The mechanical army could be repaired, and the summoned creatures were endless. Both sides had their advantages. If it was a one-on-one battle, Han Xiao would have an 80% chance of beating Taylor without perfect mechanical sense. Now that he had activated perfect mechanical sense, it was even more likely that he would win. However, Taylor had teammates that restrained Han Zhao's Mech Legion, making it easier for him to cast spells and summon endless helpers. Currently, there were all sorts of summoned creatures on the battlefield. There were demonic bats, azurite statues, plasma hydralisks, spirit hunters, spirit hermits, and so on. There were all sorts of strange combat styles, and all of them were monsters that had signed contracts with Taylor to nurture. A powerful summoner would definitely have a variety of summoned creatures. Han Xiao split out 2 to 3 million mechanical soldiers under the command of the combat artificial intelligence to fight these summoned creatures. The scene of the mechanical army fighting the beast tide was like 2 armies fighting. The mechanical army cooperated well with each other, and their tactics were precise. They continuously shot down batch after batch of summoned creatures, and their losses were much lower than the summoned creature army. In the chaotic battlefield, a team of mechanical life forms, led by Psionic Prime, was moving at high speed amidst the crisscrossing cannon fire. The combat artificial intelligence Sparta did not take over the mechanical life forms' bodies and only gave them tactical orders. The specific actions allowed the mechanical life forms to display their subjective initiative. This way, the mechanical life forms could unleash 100% of their combat strength. The powerful data processing and battlefield analysis modules were running at high power, showing the gaps between the rain of bullets and planning the dodging routes. Psionic Prime's flying posture was agile, and the entire team followed behind him to avoid the energy beams. If they could not avoid them, they would use psionic shields to block them in advance. The speed of the team was very fast. The direction in which this combat team was heading was precisely the battlefield where the elite summoned creatures were. The target was a team of very strong commander-grade demon batmen. They were guarding a blue-gold statue that was hundreds of meters tall and continuously shooting laser beams. All of them were buffed by the summoner's status halo, and their attributes were greatly increased. They had already killed many normal mechanical soldiers and floating turrets. Everyone pay attention. Our mission is to eliminate the enemy's elite units. In the communication network of the mechanical life, Psionic Prime's emotionless mechanical voice sounded. This team of demon batmen notice the rapidly approaching mechanical life team and immediately turn around to face them. The distance is shrinking. Prepare for battle. Target locked. Fire. The mechanical life forms that belong to the long-range attack team turned back to their original bodies. There were dark energy turrets, psionic cluster jets, firepower fortresses, and high-energy short-range missile launchers. They fired a series of long-range attacks toward the target. Bang, bang, bang. These commander-grade demon batmen all activated their red magic shields and charged forward while enduring the attacks. From time to time, someone's shield would be broken and penetrated by the long-range attacks of the mechanical life team. There were many casualties. Facing the attack, the enormous blue-gold statue immediately turned around. White energy gathered in its eyes, and the next moment, thick, concentrated magic energy beams shot out. The cannon fodder mechanical soldiers and summoned creatures in its way were all blown apart. The remaining magic energy beams shot towards Psionic Prime's mechanical life team. Giant King Kong attack. Behind Psionic Prime, an enormous shadow loomed over. Countless mechanical components combined and turned into a 100-meter-tall mechanical life named Giant King Kong. He raised an enormous psionic shield to protect all his team members and forcefully blocked the magic energy beams. Bang! The light expanded and caused a rumbling explosion. He only suffered some damage to his outer armor. The thrusters on the back of the giant titan were pushed to the maximum power output. Its huge body leaped into the air and knocked away the summoned creatures that came to stop it. It crossed a large distance on the battlefield and landed on the azurite statue. The two giant beasts collided with each other. Boom! It was as if the earth was shaking. The blue-gold statue was pinned down by Giant King Kong and given a good beating. Blue fragments fell like rain. While the two enormous creatures were fighting, the small teams below were also engaged in an intense battle. These mechanical life forms were basically all elite units that had grown for a period of time. Among them, there was no lack of individuals that were mini-bosses. As the Vanguard team, their combat power was extremely outstanding. They were the strongest small elite combat team under Han Shao. The armed steel cavalry, Oathkeepers, beast-type soldiers, and other types of mechanical life forms charged forward and engaged in close combat with these elite demon batmen. It was a complete one-sided slaughter. The commander-grade demon batmen were sliced into pieces by the various advanced close combat mechanical weapons. The enemy's spirit form hunters that could flash joined the battle and were captured by the mechanical life forms restraining devices. Psionic Prime continued to split and reassemble. His dazzling attacks easily cut the demonic Batman captain into a pile of minced meat. After reassembling, he turned around and looked around. His teammates had basically finished their battle and wiped out an elite summon creature squad. Humph, easy. Silver Flash let go of the corpse of an elite demon Batman and let it fall to the ground. Unfortunately, this is a planetary defense battle. If it was an attack, I could have fired at full power and the battle would have ended long ago. Bullsh asterisk T. Bullsh asterisk T. Crimson Flame rolled in the air. Silver Flash ignored him and turned to look at the battlefield of the 7 Beyond grade as in the distance. Unfortunately, we're not strong enough. I really hope we can get closer to the battlefield and help Father. Hearing this, Giant King Kong threw away the blue-gold statue that was shattered and replied, "Father is protecting us. We're clearly weapons made by Father, but he's protecting us. Is this the fatherly love that those creatures were talking about?" Silver Flash was curious. Just as Psionic Prime was about to speak, a piercing sound came from the sky and attracted the attention of many people. Shio! Many mechanical lives looked up. In the sky far away, a giant dragon spun and fell from outer space, leaving behind a large amount of dragon blood. It was burning with flames all over its body, smashing a large number of mechanical soldiers and summoned creatures far away like a meteor. It instantly passed through the height of the battlefield and smashed toward the ground, shrinking into a red the size of a rice grain in everyone's eyes. Boom! The giant dragon was like a space-based kinetic weapon that hit the ground, creating a huge shockwave and causing a large number of buildings to collapse. The one who fell was Milizau's. He's heavily injured? Han Xiao, Baoni, and Austin saw this scene and were shocked. That shouldn't be. Milizau's was strong enough to stall Sagman and Ninja. How could he be heavily injured and defeated so quickly? The three of them were bewildered as they dove toward Milizau's position in unison, dragging the battlefield to the ground. Psyker and the other three followed closely behind. The distance from the sky to the ground was only a matter of the blink of an eye for them. The next moment, Han Xiao and Baoni landed beside the huge crater. Austin controlled the Palace of Hidden Spells to float in midair. Seeing Milizau's current state, the three of them were shocked. Milizau's enormous dragon body was in a terrible state. There was a huge hole in his chest, and the broken bones and organs could be seen. Dragon blood was gushing out, and broken dragon scales were hanging on the edge of the wound. This terrifying wound seemed to be caused by an attack. Baoni was shocked. It was hard to imagine what kind of terrifying attack could cause such a wound to Milizau's tough body. That was not all. New cracks kept appearing on Milizau's body. It was as if some kind of energy was causing continuous damage to his body and destroying his cells. Seeing this, Han Zhao's mechanical suit popped out a needle again and injected a dose of Aurora Life Potion into Milizau's body. However, it only slowed down the speed of the injury and did not show any signs of recovery. As the needle was injected into the wound, the combat notification was triggered. Han Xiao looked at the interface, and his heart skipped a beat. The interface showed Milizau's current state. His health was only left with 63%, and it was still decreasing. There were many negative statuses on his status bar, and two of them were the most terrifying. Cell activity suppression, high. The effect of all healing methods will be reduced by 70%. Duration, unknown. From Ninja, double corrosion. Received 12,582 physical damage and 15,733 mental damage per second. Duration, unknown. From Ninja. Milizau's groaned, looked up at Han Xiao and the others, and said weakly, "Be careful, they brought the 10,000 deity scepter with them." Before he finished, Sagman and Ninja landed, and the six beyond grade as of the enemy gathered. Han Xiao and the others looked up and saw the weapon that injured Milizau's. It was the 10,000 deity scepter floating beside Sagman. It's actually this famous universal treasure. Han Zhao's face darkened. The arcane church is really going all out this time. They've even taken something like that out? Austin's expression suddenly changed, and he immediately wanted to retreat. He had fulfilled his promise to help and felt that he had already done his best. He did not want to die for this. Relying on the defense and mobility of the Palace of Hidden Spells, he had the confidence to participate in this battle where there was a huge disparity in combat strength. However, the 10,000 deity scepter's attacks had a strange nature. It could ignore most physical and energy shields. Basically, one could only dodge and not block. This meant that the Palace of Hidden Spells could not help him block the 10,000 deity scepter's attacks. Austin's thoughts were clear. The Arcane Church's target was Black Star and the Dynasty, not him. If he was determined to retreat, the enemy would not waste their beyond grade A combatants chasing after him, and he would definitely be able to escape. He did not want to have a taste of this weapon that could threaten a beyond grade A's life. This old man wants to run. Although he did not know how to read minds, Han Xiao knew what Austin was thinking when he saw the hesitation on his face. The appearance of the 10,000 deity scepter was beyond his expectations. If he had known that the enemy had such a trump card, he would not have separated himself from Milizau's. With a solemn expression, Han Xiao injected a few more needles into Milizau's. Only then did his injuries stop worsening and gradually recover. Although high cell activity suppression weakened the effect of the Aurora Life Potion, Han Xiao held a large stock of potions. It would be the same even if he injected a few more times. It would just take longer for him to recover. However, the enemy had 6 beyond grade As. They would not give them too much time. Whoosh! The six of them surrounded Han Shao, Milizaus, and Bayoni in midair. The pressure they gave off was comparable to the sky falling. As for Austin, he was isolated by them. Don't interfere. This is your last warning. Cisco looked at Austin. Austin glanced at Han Shao, pursed his lips, and did not dare make a move. The 10,000 deity scepter floated in front of Sagman, tilted downward, and aimed at Milizaus, who could not move. A look of despair appeared in Milizaus' eyes. He was very clear about his own situation. Although he did not know what kind of miraculous medicine Han Shao had used to heal his injuries, he would most likely enter a state of near death if he was hit one more time, and he would be at the mercy of his enemies. Just as Sagman was about to activate the 10,000 deity scepter, Han Shao suddenly took a deep breath and said loudly, "Don't you guys want the evolution cube?" Sagman's actions paused, and he narrowed his eyes. He did not activate the 10,000 deity scepter immediately. "You want to hand it over in exchange for a chance to live?" "That's right." Han Shao took a deep breath, took out the evolution cube, and secretly removed the sealing effect of the space-time amber. The six of them focused on the small silver cube in Han Zhao's hand. Cisco's expression changed. At this moment, he regained his psychic senses toward the evolution cube. His eyes sparkled, and he said with certainty, "This is the real deal." Sagman nodded, looked at Han Shao, and changed the topic. "However, do you have a right to negotiate now? If we kill you, we can still get the evolution cube. Why should we agree to your request? Whether we capture you guys or kill you, the decision is in our hands. Do you think you have the right to choose?" "No, you're wrong." Han Zhao's 5 fingers tightened slightly, and he said with a deep voice, "If I destroy the portable shell of the evolution cube here and release its huge body, can you guys take this thing away before the dynasty's reinforcements arrive?" Sagman narrowed his eyes, not surprised at all. Before the operation, the Arcane Church had already guessed that Black Star would very likely destroy the portable device of the evolution cube when he was at the end of his rope. Thus, they had already prepared for this. God's bargaining chip with them was the information of the evolutionary civilization. He had asked the Arcane Church to create a special device to transport the evolution cube, and it was currently in the fleet. However, God had left something behind. As long as the transaction was completed, he would provide the information of the portable version of the evolution cube. Therefore, if Black Star was willing to hand over the portable version of the evolution cube, it would save him a lot of trouble. "All right, as long as you surrender and hand over the evolution cube, we can spare your lives. The upper echelons will be happy to see the dynasty pay a price in exchange for you captives." Sagman agreed to this request, and the lives of the 3 of them were in his hands. His face was calm and indifferent. He was the representative of the 6 of them and could make decisions on the spot. Captives were better than death. Although both would anger the dynasty, the former would have more bargaining chips to deal with the dynasty. Although Milizaus was annoyed at the crisis brought by Han Shao, seeing Han Shao hand over the evolution cube and beg for their lives, he could not help but feel sad. This time, he suddenly realized that Han Shao had quietly stepped on him. He knew that Han Shao had a plan, so he used magic to connect the consciousness of the 3 of them and started communicating. Han Shao did not show any abnormalities and seemed to heave a sigh of relief. "As a show of sincerity, I'll tell you the password to activate the portable mode of the evolution cube." Then he did not care about Sagman's reaction and directly entered the activation program. According to the information provided by God, activating the evolution cube did require a special method. Han Zhao's words were not a problem, and verifying on the spot might prevent God's information from deceiving them. "When you become a captive, we'll have plenty of time to demonstrate." Sagman didn't notice the problem at first, but the next moment he suddenly realized something, and his expression changed as he shouted sternly, "Don't worry, we'll have more than enough time to demonstrate." "No, stop right there." Han Shao ignored him and completed the activation program. "Who?" The next moment, he activated the evolution energy inside, and it surged toward the 6 of them in midair. The six of them hurriedly released their shields. If they were hit by the evolution energy, they would turn into a black cocoon and enter the evolution process. Although they could forcefully stop the evolution process and regain their mobility, they would also be controlled for a certain period of time. Sagman's killing intent toward Han Shao instantly reached its peak. We gave you a chance to live, but you did not cherish it and even tried to scheme against us. You're seeking death. You're seeking death. Without saying anything, Sagman directly used the 10,000 deity scepter and shot it toward Milizau's. He would cut off his wings first, and it would be time to slowly torture Blackstar afterward. Hum hum hum. The 10,000 deity scepter floating in the air vibrated again and suddenly launched an attack. The god phantoms gathered into an energy pillar and blasted out. Milizau's thought about what Han Shao had just said and could only choose to believe him. He ignored the attack of the 10,000 deity scepter and released offensive spells to attack Sagman and the other 5 at the same time. Baoni also did the same and launched attacks to pin down the 6 of them. The surrounding mechanical troops also received the order to fire at the same time. On the other side, Han Shao opened his arms and released mechanical balls one after another. They floated in the path of the 10,000 deity scepter's energy pillar, forming 2 layers of barriers. Because they were all spherical, the gaps in the first layer were filled up with the second layer. Then, these mechanical balls rapidly underwent nanotransformation and retracted their shells, revealing translucent amber balls inside. After staying on Planet Lighthouse for more than half a month, Han Shao had already used the space-time amber to create a large number of amber balls. The 6 people from the Arcane Church retreated to avoid the evolution energy. While dispersing the attacks of Han, Shao, and the other 2, they paid attention to the results of this attack. Seeing this, a mocking smile appeared on Sagman's face. Shields? In front of the 10,000 deity scepter, shields are useless? What? Before he could finish his sentence, the next scene made all 6 of them widen their eyes in shock. The energy pillar shot out by the 10,000 deity scepter did not penetrate the translucent spherical shield as they had expected. Instead, it slid across the barrier and shot in all directions. Like a water pillar hitting a lotus leaf, it did not penetrate the barrier at all. Milizau's and Baoni also widened their eyes in disbelief. Earlier, when Han Shao said that he could block the attack of the 10,000 deity scepter, they could only believe it. Now that he had really succeeded, the 2 of them could not help but be stunned. The reason why Han Shao was so certain was not because he blindly believed in the effects of the space-time amber, but because in the later version of the World Tree Civilization War in his previous life, the Arcane Church had used the 10,000 deity scepter before and was defeated by the space-time amber. Boom! Just as both sides were stunned, Han Shao, who knew that the space-time amber could block the 10,000 deity scepter, took this short opportunity and made the amber ball barrier spread out in all directions toward the enemy, turning into a moving shield. Sagman and the other 5 had already recovered from their shock. They hurriedly used long-range attacks to try and get the 10,000 deity scepter back. However, the amber balls that spread out in midair moved to the front of these long-range attacks with the help of the micro-thrusters, blocking all the psychic, magic, and light energy attacks of the enemy and causing them to deviate from their target. The 6 of them did not expect this translucent spherical shield to be able to block all their energy attacks without being damaged at all. They were shocked. What kind of strange thing is this? It can block all attacks? By the time they realized that although physical attacks were ineffective, they could use kinetic energy to knock these amber balls away. It was already too late. Han Shao used Void Hyperdrive and moved some distance away before he was interrupted. He then grabbed the 10,000 deity scepter and charged into the sky. With the 10,000 deity scepter snatched away, Sagman and the other 5 abandoned the others without hesitation and chased after Han Shao, swearing to take back the 10,000 deity scepter. The 6 of them used all their means, and Han Shao only managed to escape for less than a minute before the 6 of them caught up. The combined attacks of 6 beyond grade, as were not something he could block at all. He was blasted away without any room to retaliate. His health instantly plummeted. Han Shao gritted his teeth and threw away the 10,000 deity scepter in his hands. Seeing this, Sagman immediately used his light energy tentacles to grab the 10,000 deity scepter and snatched it back. However, before he could even heave a sigh of relief, he suddenly realized that the 10,000 deity scepter had been sealed in a translucent spherical substance. No energy could penetrate it. It was exactly the same substance as the spherical shield that blocked the 10,000 deity scepter. Sagman's expression changed drastically. What did you do? You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.